Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 237. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Sean's got another contest, which always has me worried. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
No, because I think I know what this one is. Oh, no.
Jim, I would like to introduce to our listeners the Sensei Super Snuggie Caption Contest. Your sister Mary was kind enough to send me pictures of you in the gift that she got you. And there's a couple of great photos in there, either of which would be great for our listeners to put a caption on. What's the sensei thinking or saying now?
Oh, God.
Both of these are going to be posted on the website. Here's the contest rules. You have to come up with a clever caption for the sensei's photo, or photos. If you want to put them together and make a comic strip, that's great too. I'll actually put up all three that your sister sent me if they want to make a comic strip. That's cool. Or you can just do one. Grand prize winner is going to get a trade of their choice from sponsor In Stock Trades. That's going to be on me. I'll buy that trade for you. So I'll buy it and send it to you. So that's from me. Second prize winner and third prize winner, we have a comic grab bag that's been put together. Our listeners are kind enough to send us comics from time to time that we can use for contests. You can choose from our comic grab bag. There's sets of runs of comics. There's also sets of trades that are in there that you can choose from. So that'll be for second and third prize winners. Also for the grand prize winner, whoever wins, you can come and join us for a show segment. I'm going to do that a little different this time. What I figured is it'd be fun to have a listener join us for two comics of their choice. So pick two single-issue titles of their choice of current books. So any two books, you would be a team book, a solo book, or a both, one of each, that you can come and join us with, basically in a show episode, to come and join us. So it'd be kind of fun to have a listener come and join us for a couple segments to talk about some of their favorite books from DC. So we always do trades when we bring listeners on for this. I think it'd be kind of fun this time to maybe just do a couple single titles. And we'll kind of rotate that when we do contests. But I thought it'd be a great way to kick off 2011 with our first contest. And let's give listeners, say, a month for this, shall we say? So we'll say the end of January. The January 31st will be the cutoff date for our Sensei Super Snuggie Caption Contest. Which just sounds fun.
Yeah, I got to thank Mary for this one.
It sounds good, though, doesn't it?
Yes. You know what? It sounds wonderful. And,
I saw those pictures. I'm like, oh, there's no way we can't use this. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Want to remind everybody, this is your last chance this month to get that 45% off deal that DCB Service is offering. It's a great opportunity for the second month in a row to get amazing discounts on the major publishers. So thank you, DCBService.com, for those amazing deals. And keep an eye out over the next week or so. They should be putting up the new books in January. So you're going to want to be checking out a week and a half. Check out DCBService.com to see what kind of deals they're offering next month. Over at InStockTrades.com. You know, I didn't pick up any of these DC Comics Presents collections, and they have this 100-page spectacular for Thunder Agents over there. As DC's new Thunder Agents series gets underway, relive these legendary tales from Thunder Agents 1, 2, and 7. Don't miss the origins of team members, the death of the lead character, and more. And this is written by Wally Wood, Steve Skeets, and others, and the artist is Wally Wood, Gil Kane, and Steve Ditko, and others. So, I mean, it's a 96-page book, regularly $7.99, 38% off, only $4.95. They have others of these DC Comics Presents. This is DC Comics Presents Thunder Agents #1, and I'm going to be grabbing this because I'm into the new Thunder Agents series. I have no experience at all with the old Thunder Agents series. This is a great primer for me. I didn't pick these up. I don't know if any of you did, but it's a great chance to pick these up. Remember, InStockTrades.com, orders of $50 or more gives you free shipping. So if you're looking for trades, collected editions, and some of these DC Comics Presents, great chance to stock up on these and save on shipping. So thank you, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for giving us amazing discounts. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing on the show. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
That enjoy thing has become a regular part of your repertoire now.
Yes,
enjoy. It is. Without further ado, Jim, let's talk some comics.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
Jim, I wanted to talk kind of semi-casually, but I'm sure we're going to go very in-depth about this. Adventure Comics number 521, and of course Legion of the Superheroes number 8. Legion of Superheroes number 8, I should say. I always do that. I throw the in there. Do you find yourself doing that?
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It's always been Legion of Superheroes, but I have a tendency to do that. I wanted to talk about these, first of all, because I've been Legion happy ever since this series kicked off. And especially with the work that Johns was doing with the Legion, and how it led all into this, and, stuff that we've seen with Lightning Saga. It's great to see these characters. I'm a big fan of, though, what's going on in Adventure Comics, how some of the issues take place in the past, but they foreshadow things that are going on in the current series. But then they're adding a history, kind of like what Secret Origins did, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I really like that concept. But this issue of Adventure Comics is very much set in current continuity. It takes place right at the same time as issue 8. Like, it's a prelude to this, with this idea of who's going to be the Green Lantern, which we've seen going on in the main series. Earthman was given the position, and then it was offered to that doctor from the Time Institute, and she turned it down as well. So we're seeing people turning down the ring. And I really think it's because this little blue dude, I wouldn't follow him around the block.
He is creepy, man. There's just something about him that I'm like, you can't trust the guy for some reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the fact that he has no mouth or face or body, and he's just sitting there, just kind of like a floating head in the air, and I don't know. There's just something not 100% kosher with this guy.
Its looks can be deceiving. Is usually one of the great things about comics is that you see a lot of times that creepy looking characters can a lot of times have the biggest heart. Tellus is a great example of this. Just a great character in there. But as we're looking over at this little blue dude, it's really not. He looks creepy, and he is.
Yeah.
Earthman and Shadowlass. Is it me, or has Earthman become one of your favorite Legionnaires? I'm really digging this guy. Is there something wrong with me?
No, I think they're slowly turning Earthman into an actual likable character, and they're giving him, he still has some of his qualities that make him, make you want to just smack him. But there are moments when he's actually a pretty decent guy. I liked when, the little green dude, was sitting there and basically ignored Shadowlass, and she's all kind of like, hey, why do you go past me, not even look at me? You can kind of see a little bit tenderness in him. He's like, hey, don't get mad. I heard he did the same thing to Dream Girl, kind of, just trying to make her feel a little bit better so she doesn't think that, it's, I don't know, there's a little bit of tenderness there where they wouldn't have been there before.
I went to elementary school with Earthman. There's a kid in elementary school I'm thinking of who is just identical to Earthman. I'm talking about Earthman as we first saw him, the putz in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was the same cocky, jock-style character that I'm just kind of like, He fit every stereotype that, usually you see in the movie jocks, and that type of thing. Like Revenge of the Nerds, the jocks in that one. Oh, yeah. Roger from Happy Days, remember he played that the jock in Revenge of the Nerds? It was just like that. Well, I'm having real problems with the fact that I really like this character now. Because I do like him. He's become a favorite Legionnaire. He has some great moments in this and I get why Shadowlass is kind of seeing the different side of him, and I really like that element about the character. And now here's the interesting part. Why did he ignore her? This Diogenes, or whatever. Is Diogenes mean?
Yeah.
Or Diogenes?
Diogenes.
Yeah. Why did he ignore Shadowlass, do you think? Do you think it's because of her alien culture? Because it doesn't seem to ignore every alien race, because when the Legionnaires are sitting there, what was it about her that she was totally dissed?
I don't know. That's that's one of the things about this guy, that there's still little stuff that we don't know, and why is he ignoring her, and why did he ignore Dream Girl? Because at first I was thinking they're from a different sector, so if he's looking for this one sector, he's only going to go after those people and only see those. But in the end, he was looking at multiple sector people when he was going through the line and just saying ding, 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 no, 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 no kind of deal. So he was looking at people from different parts of the universe. It could be maybe based on her power type of set, because she's the the shadow kind of metaphysical type of deal. But he could see the invisible guy or invisible boy. So I don't know.
It was funny. Like Quizlet was another character. Completely ignored Quizlet.
Yeah.
Even though scanned Quizlet, but then like made specific acknowledgments to some of them. Sunboy seemed to diss Sunboy a bit too, because Sunboy said, "Nor this son of Earth." I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I just found it very interesting how this character reacted to specific Legionnaires, or didn't react to specific Legionnaires, which was really interesting about this. I'm loving this Legion world and the fact that they can bring in everything from the DC Universe. I like that when you read Legion of the Superheroes and Adventure Comics, you're really getting the whole universe in 2 books, which is really kind of cool. So it's, for anybody who's not reading these books, it's a very cool future exploration where you don't feel like you have to read 50 books to follow an entire universe. So for people on a budget that are looking for a couple of books to follow and really get behind large teams, these are ones I can highly recommend for just that purpose. I did like seeing this whole thing that was going on in Africa, where we got to see the team break up into squads to deal with a major crisis. And you got to see how certain members obviously have a little bit more experience than others, or a little bit better leadership understanding. Like when we see Element Lad, Sunboy was like ready to build up this like trench to keep back the fire, using his own powers. Mm-hmm. And Element Lad's like, no, hang on, with all the books and everything in there, let me just take away all the oxygen really quick and then give it back really quick so the fire can't take hold. I liked the specific details, though, that he was taking out the oxygen for just enough time so the fire wouldn't take, and then giving it back in enough time that people could start breathing again.
Yeah, so people don't die. It's a little thing, that I do like seeing stuff like that. It's that whole improvise, adapt, and overcome deal. And that's something for me when, that I've gotten into the Legion. I've gotten into stuff like that where it's, okay, let's try this combination. Let's do this 1-2 punch.
Element Lad was really great in this, though, because he really took on like a leadership role of his squad and was really kind of organizing everybody to like, hey, tell us do this. Hey, this person do that. Hey, you do this. Wait, hey, back off here because we need to do this. I really liked seeing squad leaders, and it's something I like about the team when they're in the field, even though Cosmic Boy is leading the team. It's not just Cosmic Boy. There are people who have been, because Element Lad's been a leader of the Legion before. Dream Girl's been a leader of the Legion before. So you see these characters in roles where you see them very confident, very secure in themselves, very secure in leading a squad. Really like seeing these moments in Legion because it makes the voting process interesting. Did you vote?
Yes, I did.
Who'd you vote for?
I voted for Shadow Lass.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I voted for Mon-El. I didn't think he was going to win. But the reason why I voted for Mon-El was because I was enjoying him so much. It wasn't because I was enjoying him in the Legion, because we haven't really seen much of him there. I enjoyed him so much in present day that I was missing him in the future. So yeah. I was, and I was totally shocked. And I mean, obviously, we're going to talk more about him being the leader. But what did you think of the voting process?
I thought that was cool. I was glad they did that. I hope they continue to do that as a regular basis, and doing it online. I went in, I casted my vote. I didn't try to do multiple votes. I'm like, you know what? One vote, one person, one vote. Just do it that way. And I went with Shadow Lass for a couple reasons. Cool. One, I thought with her and the Earthman relationship kind of going on, with her being in a leadership position, that would be some really cool stories. And then two, she's a character I'm starting to dig just her style and her groove. And I was like, man, I'd like to see more of her in the book. I'd like to see her deal with different stuff. So
it was interesting with the people that they chose. Because I think Polar Boy was one of the choices. I'm almost positive because I kind of wanted to vote for him too. Because I was really enjoying that character in recent storylines. And
that's who Earthman voted for, by the way.
Polar Boy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really liked that character quite a bit. So it was fun voting. Like, I don't know how often they're going to do this. I don't remember how often they did in the past. Because I never voted in the past, obviously. This is something, though, that I really get people that are longtime Legion fans, like, why you got into this and what it must have been like to have voted many times before for Legion leaders. And the process, I think, is really a great way to give us a say in the whole thing. Now, honestly, if I had known where what this was going to do with Mon-El's story,
Yeah.
it would have hands down I would have voted for Mon-El first.
Yeah.
I had no idea where the plans were for Mon-El when it came for Diogenes, to vote for a Green Lantern, that he was going to vote for Mon-El. I mean, we kind of have to talk about this now because we seem to be already in this place. But that adds a whole crazy twist to this whole thing. The fact that Mon-El's the Green Lantern.
Yeah, how can he be a leader of because he walked away. Well, he didn't completely walk away from the Legion, but he did walk away. He's like, I'm a Green Lantern now. I'm not Legion. So it's going to be curious. They're sending Shadowlass to go try to talk to him. Can she bring him back? What's going to happen there? Have they ever done where a leader turns it down and doesn't become the leader?
But is Shadowlass, because if you look at Legion number 8, it really seems like Cosmic Boy is going to go down and talk to him. So I don't know who's going to go talk to him. Because at the end of this issue, Shadowlass talks to him.
Yeah.
But he wasn't leader yet at the end of this issue. This takes place before
Right, 8.
Legion number 8. So they don't know when he becomes Green Lantern, he hasn't been leader yet of the team.
Right.
So they're just having a talk about him leaving. So I took it at the end of issue 8 that Cosmic Boy was going to go talk to him. Because Cosmic Boy says at the end that now I need to seek him out and see if he'll come back and join us or if he'll take this role. So it's interesting to see how that whole... And what's it going to be like? Will he give up the ring to do that if he does become the leader?
And I was just assuming that it would be Shadowlass would, because she has that inside connection to him and all that because of their relationship. But, it is Cosmic Boy right there saying, hey, let's just see if he'll do it.
Well, but here's the thing. See, that's an interesting dynamic, too, because there's two food for thoughts there. If I'm Cosmic Boy, let's go off of your theory, because there's a possibility that I would, if I was Cosmic Boy, send Shadowlass, hoping that, she could appeal to him. On the other hand, because she's with Earthman now, that could have the opposite effect and push him away. So there's that other part of me that would be weighing out, is she the best one to send? So I'll be curious to see, because maybe you read it right. I don't know. Maybe your thinking isn't so off. I don't know. Who would it be better to send her or not to send her? Would she have a positive effect or a negative effect? Is that something that's going to be explored, or is it in fact going to be Cosmic Boy himself that's going to go? Because just because he says that at the end of the issue doesn't mean he's going to go, or that he's going to go alone, because he's hurt. So obviously I would assume he would take at least somebody with him, or at least a couple Legionnaires with him, hopefully to appeal. I don't know. And I don't know that she would be the one I would take or not. Would you take her if it was you, considering what's going on with her?
I actually probably would, because she does have insight into who he is and his mindset and how he thinks, just because she is so close to him. It wouldn't be as a bring her along to kind of tug at the old heartstrings or get him that way. It's bring somebody who knows him well enough to know what to say to him to get him to come back.
Yeah, see, I would think, though... See, this would be playing devil's advocate on that end. The one drawback to actually taking her along, though, would it make him see that he needs to move on with his life the way she has? And that might have the opposite effect. So I don't know. It's an interesting discussion point, because everything you're saying I agree with. So I'm with you. But then I'm seeing the other side of it, too, and I'm like, well, I don't know that I would bring her. And I love that about this book. It's more of a compliment to the book that we're even having this discussion, because I see these characters as fleshed out, well-rounded characters where I'm actually thinking like they're real people. And who would I bring? And that's a compliment to the writing, because if you don't know these characters well enough that you can feel that way about them.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a ton of history with these characters as far as a couple. I've read stories where they've been a couple, so I know they've got a rich, long history together, long enough that I've read stories where they were a couple. So I get it, and I am thinking of them realistically because of it. This is part of the drama that I really enjoy about the Legionnaires. It's not just about them fighting massive villains. It's not about just this great darkness saga that they fought, things like that. I loved all that stuff. That's great, big epic battles. But those matter more because the characters have interpersonal relationships. They have friendships that matter, and when horrible things happen to them, or when they turn, or where they go down a dark path or something like that, it matters to other people besides just that character. There's a family feel, a family relationship to them that matters. And that's the key to having a core team like this that just really works. And when I say core team, even though it's a large, intense group in size, you do get this feel that these characters have just years and years of history together. And when somebody new like Earthman comes in and shakes things up a little bit, it's because you've still got these characters that you know and love that are a part of it. So it's cool. It's a cool thing about Legion that I'm really digging right now. So I don't know.
Something else interesting that I'm finding, I'm looking, at the issue 8, the actual voting tally.
Mm-hmm.
The second, the person with the second highest votes was Brainiac 5.
Wow.
And Mon-El got 7 votes. Brainiac 5 got 6 votes. And there's one person, Dawnstar, who was unable to vote because she was unconscious. So what if they wait to see who she votes for and she picks Brainiac 5? Or if they say if Mon-El doesn't take this position, does it go to the second highest person?
Well, here's the interesting part. And I had to look online for this. I wonder if there actually is a tally of what the people actually voted for.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'd like to,
because that's obviously more than 7 people voted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Honestly, if only that many people voted online for this, I would say it's a pretty unsuccessful campaign. But so I'm going to assume that a lot of people voted. But I would imagine some of them are pretty close. So here's the funny part. Going off of your theory, do we know that Mon-El actually won amongst the people? Maybe it was Brainiac 5, and storyline-wise, we're going to see why Brainiac 5 would take over. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. What if they were getting a little swerve? Once again, I don't know if they've ever done anything like that or if they've thought about something like that, but that would be a great swerve if the online voting actually voted for Brainiac 5. And so they do in the story where they say Mon-El, Mon-El's like, no. So we go, well, we have to go to the second choice, Brainiac 5.
Yeah, I don't know that I really care, except that I'm so intrigued. I will say this. I'm emotionally intrigued by Mon-El as leader right now. I'm not even saying because I voted for him, because I was literally just as interested in voting for Polar Boy. I don't care on that perspective of it. It's more with this whole him being Green Lantern thing and walking away because of that. I think there's something intriguing about him being voted leader. I think it adds a cool story element. Like, how is he going to react to that? And what kind of leader will he be with these kind of emotions going on? What about the selection of him as Green Lantern? It was interesting how it went to the Daxam history of Sodom Yat.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Sodom Yat's still around in this time period. So it's kind of, we're now seeing 2 Daxams with the rings, and if you're talking power along with it, that's a great 1-2 combo punch you got there. You got the power of the ring, plus you got the natural power that he has to amplify it. So that's they make a really good Green Lantern, because even if you lose power in the ring, they still got plenty of firepower to back it up. So I don't know. I like the thought behind it, and I like the fact that why he took it. He's had a lot of crazy stuff going on in his life, and he needs to get off of Earth. He needs to get on with something else. He needs a new direction. As Mon-El of the present day time, he's had some dealings with the Green Lantern, so he understands what the basic premise of the Corps is. So he's got that kind of going for him. So I could see why he would say, "Yeah, this is something I'm going to do. This is something I'm going to see where this goes with it." And it's keeping up with that true hero nature that we saw Mon-El develop, in the Action Comics story with him. So again, I was very happy that he was selected as the Green Lantern. Didn't see it coming at all. I had no idea who was going to get it. In a way, I was actually kind of thinking Shadowlass would get offered it because, Earthman turned it down. Again, I was keeping everything tied, around with Earthman not being the Green Lantern, and I was thinking that'd be kind of interesting if she was offered it, and she said sure. That would really be kind of an interesting thing, those two dealing with it. But, there's definitely a lot of room to play with this and a lot of cool stories, because what's going to happen when Sodom Yat and Mon-El actually have that first face-to-face, first meeting kind of deal?
I honestly see your points about Shadowlass for future voting. I would honestly consider voting for her because I think that's interesting. My personal, I'm hoping it does stick with Mon-El, because I think that, to me, it looks super interesting.
Oh yeah.
I think the setup to this is absolutely brilliant, and if I would love to know behind the scenes what kind of tap dancing goes on with choosing potential candidates to put up on the internet and say, hey, vote for these characters. And, do you have potential outlines set up for each of the characters? Because, wow, that can really change your whole story direction. But this is really neat, the way that it's all played out. I want to announce a charity that I'm starting up. It's the charity really to put together and gather money for Wildfire's containment suits. Because he seems to be, like, disembodied every time you turn around. So I'd really like to put together because these suits have to be expensive. He's one of my all-time favorite Legionnaires. I loved him as a kid. And, Drake needs a containment suit at all times. He just looks weird as an energy blob. So, I really want to put together a fund. I kind of want him to have containment suits set up all over the galaxy, a la Dick Grayson having these little pods for bat suits. Yep. So he really should look back to Batman history. And that's why I think he needs a fund, though, because that would be pretty darn expensive. You need, I would imagine billionaire money is next to nothing in the future if things keep going the way that they do. So, want to make sure that he's got, at least $1 trillion. So we really need to get together. That's why I'm saying we need to do it now, in our time.
Start building it now and let it go through. Yeah.
So, I'm going to start up an online charity and fund saying, the Drake Burroughs, buy me a containment suit fund. And I'm going to put all the money in there. It'll be, I'm assuming, tax deductible. How does that work with future charities? Like, Jim, is that tax deductible if you're...
Well, you got to get recognized as a charity.
Okay.
You got to get, registered and recognized.
He's a superhero.
Yeah, well, but it's still, you got to go through the paperwork. It is the government. You're going to have paperwork. And
but I'm sure, Jim, it's got to be an easy approval.
It should be. Look at how many times has he saved the universe.
Right.
We're not talking just, somebody who's done some good around the neighborhood. This guy has saved or will save the universe, in the future. So, come on, let's start thinking of this ahead of time. Now, please do me a favor. When you start filing this paperwork, let me know.
Okay.
Because when the IRS comes to pay a little visit going, what the heck are you trying to pull here? I want to be there present with popcorn and a drink and watch the show.
Well, but see, I've already thought of this. It's not like I'm trying to put together a charity for an alien. He is from Earth, okay? Yet, granted, it's from the future, but he's one of our boys. So, the way I'm looking at, he's an energy dude. But, he wasn't always an energy dude. Something happened to him to make him this way. I'm prepared to argue this point. He has no body.
I want to be present just to see the look on their face. Now, on a more serious note.
What?
You'd think they would give him a little bit more armored containment suit. Because he's always breaking, and it doesn't seem like it's the most sturdy of material. Present day superheroes have nanotechnology and self-repairing type of stuff. This is the distant future. You would think they would have a suit that can, when it rips, it can contain itself, and it could do a little, kind of mending type of deal, or have it be more armor plated, or something that can take a bump. Because every time I'm reading this guy, I'm like, dude, you're just going to rip again.
Right. What's with Brainiac 5? I mean, he's really got to get on board with this. This should really be something, what does he do for the team exactly besides be snotty? I mean, this is something, he's always telling them, I'm working on this project, that project. Wouldn't you, because, okay, let's be honest. All joking aside, Wildfire's a pretty powerful character, right? All right, so, shouldn't you, headline and say, let's make top priority getting this guy a suit that will not dissipate, because, in this particular situation, don't you think it would have been a really good idea when you've got somebody that's attacking from light years away that you could continue following them because Wildfire didn't fall apart?
You know what? Brainy's experiment on the cockroaches. Maybe he's already working on it. He's trying to figure out, what makes the cockroaches so resilient. Then he'll make a suit out of, kind of cockroach hide.
Oh, I don't want to see that.
It could be La Cucaracha.
Oh. Now, see, this is just it. You're right now, if that's what's going to, my funding for my charity is going to go towards.
Oh, yeah.
I'm out on this.
La Cucaracha.
This is exactly why you will not be on our board of directors. Because I'm putting together one. That I've got to make sure when I put together my board of directors for the Drake Burroughs Containment Suit Fund, it's got to be like-minded people.
Okay.
Because these type of arguments really, it'll make us look silly. You talk about the IRS are going to be knocking on the door, and I'm going to be having conversations with them, and then you and I are going to be arguing over La Cucaracha. Now, and that just sounds silly. That sounds much more silly than I'm putting together a fund for an energy blob from the future, from Earth. I want to be taken seriously, Jim.
Yes, dang it. Show them your Legion ring.
Yeah, there you go. I don't have a Legion ring. I need a Legion ring.
I know. They don't have... Well, they make them. I just haven't... Why isn't DC released one? We got all the other rings. Let's get a Legion ring.
I would love that as a pack-in.
Oh, God, yeah.
For an issue? That'd be great. I'd pay an extra $1 for the issue or whatever to get that Legion ring as a pack-in. That'd be a very cool pack-in. Talking about Wildfire and Dawnstar, I really loved seeing them as a team working together with the animals, where she flew in to save the civilians, and then he was redirecting them back to the reservation. This is what I was talking about with the squad-based thing that was going on before, how they were each handling different areas to make sure that they were minimizing and really taking care of civilian life. A lot of this, we're going to talk about JSA on this episode, a lot of this is being explored in present-day DC Universe with the JSA, about, what is the role of the hero? And what is the role of the hero with regards to the civilians? I really love the Legion of Superheroes focus on civilians, on all the homeworlds. When they go there, it really is about protecting people, protecting their resources. It really looks at their ecosystems and the global level of these places. I really like that. It gets very political because of it. And there's something that's neat. To me, it feels like an evolution of superheroes. Things that they haven't thought of in present-day comics. In the future, these characters have evolved and they are thinking of, because they have to work with other races, so they think in a different way. They react in a different way. They're concerned about the past because of the way that it could affect the future. And that's something that I think is just a little bit more evolved. And I like that. I really like that concept about this team and how it works, and we get to see it here. It's a nice companion piece to the other DC Universe books because of it.
Definitely.
Talk about this Diogene one more time. The ego on this little blob, that he comes in and he's calling a Legion meeting so he can evaluate them. Why would you, this tells that Cosmic Boy is really ready to, drop the leadership role. As a leader, why would you let this little guy do this?
He tries the little bit of stuff saying, hey, on this planet, it's customary to ask permission before coming in. He's like, curious but irrelevant. Boom, and he continued on.
Just crazy stuff going on there.
Hey, can you imagine, though, if he had chosen Brainiac 5, to be a Green Lantern?
Well, now here's an interesting thing. What kind of Green Lantern... Do you think that Brainiac 5 could be a Green Lantern? Here's the funny thing. Mon-El wasn't chosen for his willpower. He was chosen for his power.
Right.
So how is that going to play out? Are we going to see him as a different kind of Green Lantern because he has... I don't know. I'm very...
Oh, I definitely think it's, because of, he's going to be a different type of... It's not you have the ability to overcome great fear. It's you have a lot of power. He's thinking that 1-2 combo punch I was talking about earlier when we were talking about Mon-El being the Green Lantern. So the reason I mentioned Brainiac 5 was just because his mind with that ring would be amazing.
Do you think he has the willpower for it, though?
Oh, God, yeah.
Or is he more like his ancestor? We've seen him with the yellow ring.
Right.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what that character's like. Because, see, in my mind, I'm going to backpedal a little bit on what I was saying there. We've seen Mon-El, especially in the stuff that was going on when he was in Action Comics, use a lot of willpower. We've seen this guy overcome a lot. So I do think that Mon-El actually would be an interesting Green Lantern because of that. But that wasn't why he was chosen. And that was an interesting distinction when they were going through. I do think Mon-El does have the willpower for it, but it was interesting that he wasn't chosen for that reason.
Right.
So, I don't know. It's cool. Can we talk a little bit about the Atom backup before we go on to talk a little bit more about Legion? I know we're kind of jumping to this, but this Atom backup is something that I've been enjoying. It's actually the last Atom backup that we're going to be seeing featured in here, where we see him working with his uncle in this world that he's created. It's actually a kind of a noble concept, using science if we need to leave our planet. Especially considering, it's always this, theory, we're using up our natural resources, we're, destroying our world. What if we need to go somewhere else? What if there's a reason why we need to go somewhere else? He's planning ahead and setting up his own little miniature ecosystem using this technology. It's a very cool concept. Now, do you think the uncle is on the side of the Angels?
No, I've never trusted the uncle since day one. And he admitted he was part of the team, and he's like, oh, I didn't realize what they were doing, and blah blah blah. I don't trust any of that. I think when it's all said and done, it's going to be a big, massive double cross kind of deal.
Okay. See, I've seen that too. I'm going to be honest with you, and you could be 100% right, so this isn't disputing you. It was funny how this issue softened me to that. And because I thought the cliffhanger at the end of the last issue where he disappeared,
yeah,
and he left the Atom to kind of like fend for himself with the alien bugs, or with the robotic bugs. I was kind of like, okay, this is his turn. But then he comes back and he was shutting everything down to protect Ray, and then to use that to give Ray hopefully access to that tech so they could escape. I don't know. I'm with you that I see a strong possibility that he's going to turn on him, but now I'm seeing the other possibility that maybe he has seen the light. I'm enjoying this a great deal because Ray Palmer, to me, one of the drawbacks with Ray Palmer is I've only seen him as the husband of the girl that killed Elongated Man's wife.
Yeah.
and then see how downtrodden he's been. I'm very much a Ryan Choi fan. And that's my Atom. But I'm softening to Ray. Like, I'm seeing more of... have you read Sword of the Atom? Did you ever have a chance to read that?
No, not yet.
I do highly recommend that, because reading that and now reading this adventure, I feel like this is the Sword of the Atom. This is the Ray Palmer from that. There's more of an adventure feel to it. I like the whole thing that he's a scientist first, and he operates with a scientific mind. And he talks about the distinctions between him and other brainy or smart heroes. Talking about Superman, talking about Batman, and characters like that who, have this intelligent aspect, but that he approaches things differently. He likes to stand back and analyze things and come in with a different sort of approach. And I like that about him, actually. And I find the inner dialogue that we're getting from him is warming me up to him. Do you like Ray? I mean, is this a character that's growing on you? Because I know you're with me. Like, Ryan Choi was our boy. So are you softening to him too?
Oh, big time. Big time. I started softening to him during Blackest Night. When, just the character, I started going, I'm curious about him now. I'm starting to, okay, could be, a pretty cool character. I understood why some people were glad to see him come back. Some people wanted to see him make a rebound kind of deal. So when all that stuff was going through, I started getting an attachment to him. His, second feature here has really got me going, okay, this guy's pretty cool. I still will miss Ryan. I still will miss the big giant head. Just the, the little funny, bits there. But he's definitely a superhero I can get behind.
Well, I honestly think Ryan Choi and how much I got into that Atom concept has really got me excited for the concept of the Atom. Yeah. So I do feel like very similar to how Wally West has me excited for Barry Allen, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think Ryan Choi has me excited for Ray Palmer. So it is interesting how those things do go together, because I didn't care for the Atom concept at all before Ryan Choi. Now I like it. I think it's kind of cool and interesting, and I think that's been carried over in this type of storytelling.
Well, we saw a lot of the adventurer aspect in Ryan Choi when he was doing it, and that was some of the things I liked about him, where he was just rediscovering, and when he first just developed that little boomstick of his, and the one scene where he was riding that dog, and just it was that fun little adventure side of it, and we're seeing now Ray have that adventure side to him. We're seeing Ray get into this and start becoming. He's no longer torn or distraught over what his ex-wife did. He's now being the hero. He is now the Atom. He's not Ray again. He's not going by Ray or Dr. Palmer. He's the Atom. And you're seeing, when you see a hero embrace who they are, it's always a cool story. And one of the things I really dig was just the improvisation where he fixed his belt.
Yeah.
But the future the panels after the fixing the belt, the art team kept with that look. They maintained the fact that his belt now looks different. It's not what it was originally. It's this modified version. I thought that was a really cool, touch, and I was glad to see that in the panels afterwards. Okay, yeah, there's the remake of the belt, that he needed to do. So it's stuff like that I'm going through this, and just I'm liking it. I am seeing it. It's tough because I don't want to say, I don't want to knock Ryan, and I never want anyone to think that, but I'm accepting that there's a new Atom. to me, Ryan Choi is the Atom. Ray Palmer is now the new Atom, and that's kind of how I'm looking at him. Even though Ray Palmer's the original, for me, he's not the original. My introduction to what makes the character cool was Ryan. So for me, it's kind of like just okay, they have a new character, they have a new person playing the role of the Atom.
This Jeff Lemire, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and I apologize for that. I love everything this guy's doing.
Yeah,
Superboy's great. This is great. Sweet Tooth's a home run. This is a writer who I'm just really, really enjoying and really understands just fun comics. And this is fun. I got to say one thing. Dad has to live. No more depression for Ray Palmer. Because that's one of the things that was a major turnoff for me. The Gene Loring thing, I think, went on just way too long.
Yeah.
And I don't know if way too long is the right thing, because to me, because I was so focused on Ryan, it made sense to have Ray Palmer doing what he was doing and going through what he was doing because we had the Atom. But now that he's back, it's like, if I'm going to connect with this guy, I need this guy who says, I can throw down if I need to. And, those moments where we see him step outside of what his comfort zone is because he's a hero and because it's needed for the mission was stuff I really liked. I liked seeing that Ray Palmer is more than a one-trick pony when he needs to be. And he was showing that. And I love how he was saying, expressing in his own dialogue that this isn't his normal way of preference. He would prefer to think his way out of a situation, but he can when he needs to, and he pulls out the sword. And it was stuff that took me back to things I saw in Sword of the Atom, which I can't recommend enough, Sword of the Atom. That was something that I read when Ryan Choi was the Atom, because that got me so into, I wanted to know more about the Atom, and I got more into the concept. And Sword of the Atom is collected, and it's something, if you're into Ray from reading this, I can't recommend enough taking a look at that, because it's very cool. But this is just... This is one of those co-features that I'm like, would you buy an Atom book now? I mean, I know there's going to be, I'm assuming you're going to read this special for sure.
Oh, definitely reading the special, and if this rolls into a monthly, which I think they said it's going to, I'll definitely give it a read. I'll give it a shot, and I'll take it out to first story arc, see where it goes, especially depending on the creative team. If we got the same writer that we have here, I'm definitely in.
Oh, it's got to be the same writer.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that. I'm not saying that in dispute of you. What I'm saying is, to me, I'm with you. Like, it would be silly
not to, right.
Yeah, because, I mean, he seems to really understand how to make this character fun and enjoyable. And to me, it would be like, you're kind of silly, unless he doesn't want to do the book. Which, there's always that possibility. I shouldn't speak for that. But this, if it goes to series with him writing it, I'm on board. It's something that I hope people give a shot if it does go to a series, because it's cool. That's one of the things, certain characters I think work better as a co-feature versus carrying their own book. And I'm very torn on those being dropped.
Yeah.
I think the price point's necessary. I totally get that. So I'm glad they're being dropped, because I do think the price point change is needed. Just because of the economy right now. I was actually looking at one of the sites that does sales numbers, and it was showing the percentages that have changed, and how the percentages have dropped something like 5% or something. And please, I'm not a stats person, so I don't read a lot of comic stats. I read the books. I'm more interested in reading the books, but I just thought I was interested in the moment of just taking a look at this. There's been a drop in comic, and why has there been a drop in comic sales? Well, let's be honest, the economy. The economy's bits right now. And these aren't DC sales. I was looking overall what Diamond, distribution they were saying is like a 4 to 5% drop in comic sales, according to Diamond. Now, what I would be curious to see, there's a 4 to 5% drop in Diamond's comic sales. I would be curious to see if you took digital numbers, because those don't, Diamond has nothing to do with the digital end of it. I'd be curious to see if comics are noticing a profit margin at all from digital, and does that make up that difference? I don't know. I'm hoping that in many ways that the digital will help save certain series and save certain books because of that. I don't know. And see a new life. Would a Blue Beetle still be around today, for example, if there had been a monthly digital version of it out at the same time? I don't know. That's an interesting part. When you get into take a looking at sales numbers and the fact that they've dropped. Well, you've even talked about on the show, you've tried to kind of consolidate your pull list a little bit.
Yeah.
But changed your mind a lot because of the price point change. There were books that were on your chopping block because you were trying to, not because you didn't like them, but because you were prioritizing your list and going, okay, these are books that would be on my bottom of the stack, and because price point wise, and there were a lot of books that got reprieves. You even put Jonah Hex on your monthly list because of that $2.99.
Yeah. Well, I looked at, and the stuff that were on the chopping block, I'm like, okay, I can save that now because, with the price, this comic just dropped by $1. Okay, now that's, would mean the same. Okay, I just say, it's saving me money by not, spending more money. And then same deal with Jonah Hex. I was like, you know what, I'm putting this back on the, on the list. So it's the price point, and I agree with you. I enjoy paying for the for that co-feature at the $3.99, but it was a factor in my purchases. If every comic was $3.99, I was way over budget, and I'm like, I need to reel this back a little bit. So for me, it's a double-edged sword. I'm glad to see it go down, but I am, concerned, curious, wondering how a solo Atom book would do, and will it survive? Will it be another one of those things where I'm just getting into the book, I'm really enjoying the title, and then they announce it's getting cut? I'm like, oh, dang it.
How many titles for you, just out of curiosity, how many titles, and you don't have to give me an exact, you're going to give me a rough estimate, how many titles would you say this saved for you, the price change?
Quick off the top of my head, at least 5 to 6.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a big difference because of the price point. For you, it actually, and from their end, it saved you on 5 or 6 books that you were not going to be getting as you went into this year. Because I knew you were having serious discussions with me about, like, paring down some of your comics.
Yeah.
Because, there comes a point where everybody's got a budget. I mean, we always talk about it on the show. So that's interesting how that saved those titles. I'm thrilled that you're reading Jonah Hex. To me, that's a victory. Here's some co-features that I'm missing, though. Like, in the first wave end, I love The Spirit.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've really loved about The Spirit is, first of all, I love the main story. I think this, out of the first wave titles, the 3 of them are out there, my favorite. I'm enjoying the whole first wave thing. The mini-series, I'll be honest, I need to reread the whole thing. I think, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the way it's been released or something like that. I just read issue 5. There was a lot I enjoyed in it, but I was very confused by the end. And that's not a knock on the series. I think there's been so much time in between each issue for me. It's a great example of where I want to kind of sit down and read 1 through 5 together. Because I love the artwork. Rags Morales art's a home run for me. There's elements that I like the Batman in this, even though he's not my traditional Batman. I like that he's a younger Batman, and that's why he's making some of the decisions he is, and I love Doc Savage in it. But I feel like the overall overarching story, I'm just confused by it. I think it's really the amount of time between reading issues versus it being an issue of quality. But I'm going to reread it again and comment further on a future episode about it, just because I'd like to reread the whole series before I make that comment. But The Spirit, for me, has been a series that was a sleeper hit that came out of nowhere. Like David Hine, what he's doing with that book is just, I think, phenomenal. The series is awesome. I'm really enjoying the pulpy noir. It's my favorite first wave book out of the batch. I actually feel like The Spirit the same way I felt about The Shield when we were talking about that series and how it just feels very different. It's, there's an edge to it. It's exciting. The art's great. Spirit has got that same emotional attachment for me. I really like the co-feature in the back, though, The Spirit Black and White. That's something that I think, and I'm losing that. So I'm hoping they do, because there was talk about them maybe doing something with that, maybe doing specials every so often or something with that. I'd love to see that, because I like one-shots, I like specials. Go ahead and do that kind of thing. When do an annual where it's all Spirit Black and White, I'm cool with that. I'd like to see that concept continue, though, in some form. On the Doc Savage end, that's a series that's really grown on me. It's not quite up to where The Spirit is, but I'm enjoying it. It's funny how I'm enjoying those 2 books a little bit more than the mini right now. And Justice Machine in the back has been super cool. And that's what I'm really sad that I'm losing. Because there's been times where the Justice Machine, not Justice Machine, Justice Inc.
Yeah.
Justice Inc. backup in the back has been very cool. I've really enjoyed the characters in there. I've enjoyed the stories. I've enjoyed that the leader is one that some of the people that are joining Justice Inc. are trying to live up to his standards, but then they question them as well. Because he's almost ruthless with the way that he goes for justice. And it's a little different. And it's a little dirty. And I like that. This world is a little dirty. And so I am liking First Wave a great deal. I know it was something that was on your chopping block.
Yeah.
Are all those books equal to you, or is there one that you're liking more than the others? Because
the spirit is hands above the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's when I was sitting there, going through the chopping and just thinking about getting rid of it. The Spirit's the one that I was like, okay, I'm enjoying. Every time I read the Spirit, I enjoy it. I really sit down and because I'll stockpile the issues because I got so much stuff going on in the other stuff, and then when I sit down and I read Spirit, I'm like, why am I stockpiling this? This is fun, and I do that every single time with the Spirit. With Doc Savage, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a cool story, but I've never been that passionate about Doc Savage as I was about some of the Spirit stories. And same thing with the backup features. I thought they were cool, but it was never anything that it was really 100% just locked on. I must have it. I don't have the same kind of like love you have for the Spirit Black and White. It's still enjoyable for me, but it's not. I don't have that same passion you have for it. So I'm not as upset to see it go. I agree with you. I would like to see, annual story or a one shot in the black and white, because it is a cool story usage. It is a cool kind of universe type of deal. So I'm enjoying that. I'm actually enjoying it. But if I had to choose between the two, hands down the main feature and get rid of the and drop off the buck. So we kind of have similar reactions, but I think you're a little bit more passionate about First Wave than I am.
And, it's funny when you say that. Yes and no, because really your comments about the Spirit are hands-on. Like, I agree with you. Spirit leaps and bounds. I'm very passionate about the Spirit. Doc Savage is not quite in that realm. I do think I'm enjoying Doc Savage more than you are, just from conversations we've had.
Yeah.
I'm confused by the mini. I think it's a release issue, though. Do you feel like, and I got to admit, before I'm making these comments, we're kind of talking off the cuff about First Wave, and I didn't look at the actual releases, but hasn't there been some delays between those issues? Am I right on that?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, and I actually really had the same kind of, when you're talking about how you had a little bit of confusion going on, I had that as well. And it's, especially because, one, I was, kind of like stockpiling, and I wasn't reading it immediately when it came out. So there would be even like an extra couple weeks after the actual release date where I'd read it. So it was really stretching things out and kind of deal. So I think we have just a release kind of stuff. And with us, we're reading all of the DCU stuff, all of the space stuff, all of the future stuff. We've got such a wide variety of what we're reading that First Wave stuff for me kept getting lost in the shuffle.
Well, it's on issue 5 right now this month, and it started in May. So it hasn't been monthly. Just what I'm saying. If it started in May,
right,
it hasn't been monthly. So there was a delay in there somewhere. And I think that's why I'm very careful in saying that I've got to go back and read it to see how I truly feel about it. But I will say, that is taken away from my enjoyment right now, in the fact that I feel like I don't understand it.
Yeah.
and I think a lot of it is I don't remember things that have happened maybe in issue 2 or in issue 1 that I critically need to be understanding and enjoying issue 5 right now. There's things that I really liked about it. The artwork is gorgeous. There's elements of the story that I'm really enjoying with Doc Savage. I like how they're pulling all these characters in. But I also think part of what's hurting that is my lack of familiarity with a lot of these characters. I feel like I'm trying to concentrate on too much.
Yeah.
And I need to go back and kind of reintroduce myself to the whole miniseries and really kind of enjoy it that way. I think when it's done, and all 6 issues are put together, because I love Brian Azzarello. So it's one of those where I'm giving a lot of wiggle room to Brian Azzarello because I know that he's going to deliver. And I feel like it's kind of like a lot of times the comments I'll have with like a Grant Morrison story. That's what I feel like with this right now. I feel like I need to go back and reread this. It's the same thing that we talked about with the Final Crisis. I'm in that mode with First Wave right now. The mini. I need to go back through and kind of reread all that. Where I don't feel that way with Doc Savage and the Spirit. I feel like those series, I really understand what's going on with them. I'm enjoying the Spirit the most.
Yes.
Doc Savage is the second. And the First Wave mini is a third, only because I couldn't tell you what's going on right now. Other than that there's this group of there's conspirators who are trying to change the world. And Batman and Doc Savage are trying. I do like this sense of danger in the thing, and there is an adventure feel to the first wave mini. I'm digging that. It's really, and it's my own. I gotta admit, I feel like an idiot right now because I read issue 5, and I'm like, I don't quite understand everything that's going on right now, and I do think it's an issue of time.
Yeah, I just want to sit back and reread the 1 through 5 or 1 through 6 when 6 comes out. Just okay, so you understand everything.
Now, if I reread them and I still feel like an idiot, I'm going to talk about that on the show for sure.
Well, I usually feel like an idiot, so welcome to the club.
Let me ask you about this. Talking about like something like First Wave, this is actually part of the reason why I went to this. Do you feel like you need to, like, if you put any of them on the chopping block, like let's say you need to cut and pare down, do you feel like if you drop one of them, you have to drop all of them? Or, no. Okay, would you keep this? Because, like, for me, I couldn't drop the Spirit in a million years. I think it's one of my favorite series right now. I'm actually gonna put maybe I am ahead of you on this. The Spirit's in my top 10 list right now. I don't know if it's quite made my top 5. I'm not quite there with it, but easily it's in my top 10 of the books being published by DC right now. I'm enjoying it that much, and I have no hesitation to put it in that category for me. I would keep it, and if I had to pare down to 10 books, the other 2 would go. Spirit stays.
Yeah, it's not in my top 10. The Spirit. The other books I could drop very easily and not. When the first wave miniseries is done, if they announce a second wave, I will think. It all depends on when I've read the whole thing through. When it's all said and done, whether I get the second wave, I could very easily say, what, with the second wave, I'll wait for the trade on that and see what happens. And same thing with the Doc Savage solo monthly. I could get rid of that with I don't want to say with little regret, because I do enjoy reading it, so there is always a level of regret there. Man, I wish I could keep that, but Doc said all the first wave stuff was so strong on the chopping block that they almost all got clipped. Now, when I say I'm really enjoying the Spirit above everything else, there is still, it's not, by comparison to other stuff, the Spirit is still closer to the middle of my stack. Not, it's not at the very bottom, but it's not at, the upper part of my stack.
Yeah, Spirit's up there for me. Doc Savage is not on the hasn't ever been on the chopping block for me. That's a book that I'm really enjoying. It's not anywhere near the Spirit level, though, which is funny. There's a lot of books that are, like, enjoyable that are kind of in my stack, where if I had to pare down, that's where I would go. But it would be hard because it's enjoyable for me. First Wave, it's funny as far as when you're talking about whether or not you would read Second Wave. I've got to reread it before I could even comment on that. Can we talk a little bit about the contents of issue 5? I know we're doing this off the cuff, but
sure.
There's a couple things, like, at the end, we're in this situation with Doc Savage, where he and Batman seem to have been doing this escape. And I love the adventure aspect of that, because Batman's following Doc Savage's lead. Doc Savage is more of the veteran. This is a very young Batman. This is a year 1 Batman, who he's really concerned with Gotham and his overall mission. I do love that in Batman's internal monologue, when he's talking to himself, or internal dialogue, I should say. Monologue could be like talking to everybody. But it's internal dialogue. And he's not talking to everybody. He's really talking to himself. If he's doing it out loud, people would be looking at him. But he's talking about how he's on this adventure with Doc Savage, and there is something passion. There's a passion about that. There's something cool about that. And he's like this. He's torn because this is taking him away from Gotham. And I love how this is a Batman his mission, he's still, like, the mission's more important to him than everything else going on around him. To the point where Bruce was trying to leave. He was, like, trying to get off the island and get away from this to get back to Gotham, because he really felt like getting paired up with Doc Savage was putting him in more of a superhero role, and he didn't consider himself a superhero. I'm liking that exploration of Batman in this. So I want to be clear, there's a lot of first wave, like, I'm clear what Azzarello's doing with Batman, and I think it's very cool. It's a different sort of take, and it's a different world, so I'm into it. And this feels very Elseworlds to me, and I'm glad that when this was introduced, they made it really clear that this is not your DC universe. We're playing around with that. I do find that I'm more open to explorations of characters like Batman and Black Canary and what they've done with them in this title, because I know it's not our world proper.
Right.
So that stuff's very cool to me. Doc Savage, like, they have him crucified up there and, Batman coming in and rescuing him in the previous issue. All that stuff worked for me. The coffin bit with Doc Savage at the end. Is that still Dad's coffin? Because Doc Savage's dad in the beginning of this series was dead, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's not dead. He's alive. The death was faked, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I don't get the coffin bit at the end. And that's why I want to go back and reread it. Did you take that as Dad's coffin or just a different coffin that was meant for Doc Savage? I took it as Dad's. Okay. So what's the deal? Do you think Dad's still in there and we've been lied to all along, or what's going on? I don't get that.
See, on one hand, I was thinking, it's been a whole ruse, and he's really is dead, and it's, maybe clone stuff or cosmetic surgery or something like that. And, it's, again, that's one of the things where I want to go through and reread stuff and see what kind of clues are in this that maybe I missed the last time.
And I want to know. So that's why I guess I felt like our comments were a little too general. That's why I want to talk about some of the specifics of the issue. Like, I actually want to reread because I want to know. I want to, start formulating. I don't feel like my theory's very strong about what's going on with the coffin, and that always bothers me. That's where I feel like I don't have enough information. So I like the series. I just feel like there's some confusing elements that I feel are we're normally, like, right now, you and I would be having passionate arguments because we're like, okay, I know this is what's going on with the coffin. And we might be on completely different planets on what our comments are, which are common with you and me, but yet we're both coming from a standpoint of we understand what we're talking about. I don't right now with the coffin. But we at least both feel that's Dad's coffin, right?
Yes, I definitely felt that's Dad's coffin.
Okay. So I am interested to go back and read because I want to know. I don't feel like I'm going back to read because I don't care. I do. So there's a distinction to me, and that's what's really important because I don't like rereading a series when I don't care. Right. And we might be in different places about this with First Wave, and that's okay. I do care, though. I actually do want to go back and reread, and that's why I think the Final Crisis comparison fits a lot more for me than something else, because there's been times where I've had to reread series where I didn't care, and that's painful. In this case, I care enough that I want to go back and reread. So there's a huge distinction there. I feel it's important to know.
Yeah, definitely there's not pain when I'm reading this or pain at the concept of going back and rereading. I said ambivalence, but it's not really, because that's more of I don't care. But because I do care about it, I do want to learn about it. There is this, I do want to know the mystery, and I do want to, understand exactly what's going on. I think my biggest problem with this is a combination of confusion as well as so much other stuff to read. I got the attention span, of a gnat. I'm bouncing around all over the place going, hey, what about this? Ooh, what about this? What about this kind of stuff? And when the new, books come out, I'm like, ooh, new Batman. Ooh, Birds of Prey. Ooh, 6, yay, And I'm like, oh, wait, I got to go back to this. I got it's that, feeling like I got to I'm pulling back to it, but it's not a... I don't hate the fact that it's happening to it. I don't hate the book. It's just, there's so much out there for me. And that's why a lot of my chopping blocks was based more on time as well as money. But once the money issue got solved, I was like, I'll make the time kind of deal. So it's a tough thing where, there's so much to read. There's so much good stuff to read that, finding the right time, the right, just to sit down and study it, and just, okay, this is what it is.
The disc, the quest for the disc, because the disc really contains all this information that they need to try and stop the bad guys. So it's been an issue of where there's multiple factions of bad guys. There's like those savages, and then there's, there's this whole conspiracy of this consortium of people that are together. And then there's the heroes who are trying to put a stop to this where it feels like they're really outmanned and outgunned and outnumbered. And I like that feeling with the heroes because a lot of times, sometimes heroes feel too powerful. And the enemy, if in this world it feels like there's not that many heroes. There's a whole lot of bad people and gray area people in this world, which makes it kind of interesting to rally behind these heroes. I love the bit with the disc where when the Spirit and one of Doc Savage's guys got a hold of the disc, that we saw Doc Savage's guy kind of take off in the little gyrocopter because the Spirit said, hey, look, there's no way we're both getting out of here. I'm going to hold these guys off. You go. It felt like a Han Solo moment, where he's like, you guys get out of here. I'm running down the hallway screaming. It it didn't go well for the Spirit. He got captured and all that, but I like that about the Spirit. He's kind of like the underdog. I like, that this guy, the Spirit doesn't feel as all-powerful as Doc Savage, and I think that might be why he's got a little bit more of an edge to me as well. Doc Savage comes off a little cocky to me sometimes. I like that about him. I like having this kind of, he's the head honcho in this world kind of character, but I always root for the underdog, and the Spirit's an underdog to me. It doesn't always end nice for the Spirit. Sometimes it ends a little dirty, and it's not always that the Spirit wins. Sometimes he and his friends survive. In this mini, Spirit's portrayed like that, and it's very consistent with what David Hines doing. I like the fact that what Azrael is doing with the Spirit there really matches what we're seeing in the Spirit solo series, and I'm really liking that aspect of it. So I don't want to make it seem like there aren't things that I like about First Wave in the mini. There's a lot that I do like. But it's that confusion element of kind of, like, when we were doing the whole disc thing, I kept saying to myself, like, okay, what do they want the disc for again?
Yeah.
I know they need the disc because it's bad if the bad guys get it, but why is it bad? That's the confusion kind of stuff that I run into with it. I'm loving the elements of, though, like, the actual quest to get the disc was super cool. I really liked that. It's just, I kept asking myself, okay, what's the darn disc for again? And that's what that was. I don't know if you ran into that same problem, but those are the kind of questions I was asking as I was reading. And normally I know those things.
Yeah, and same thing like you mentioned earlier with Doc Savage and his crew. I'm not comfortable with who is the people. Who's that again? Oh, yeah, that's okay. And I do have to, remind myself as well. Same type of deal that you're mentioning with the disc. I have that kind of stuff where I'm like, okay, what's this? Oh, yeah, that's Savage's guy. Okay, yeah.
Yet I and I'm cautious on
but
this.
I like the characters.
Yes.
I like the team. I like the story they're telling. It's just that, it's kind of like, if when I first picked up Legion of Superheroes, I didn't know who any of these people were. I didn't know anything about their personalities, who's had any type of relationships, who's had like that kind of stuff. I didn't know any of that, so I was having a hard time enjoying and following Legion. Once I got the groove of the team, I'm like a Legionnaire now. Same deal with Doc Savage. I gotta, sit down and get that moment where I get the groove of who these people are. How do they mesh? How do they work together? What's their strengths? What's their weakness? Once I have that locked in, I know it'll be one of those, oh, this is awesome kind of deals.
Do you have a favorite member of Doc Savage's team?
No, because actually I'm going to have to pull out the book, look at them, and actually look at their faces, think for a second, and say, this guy. I couldn't tell you a name off the top of my head because they do kind of mesh for me, and I'm like, I got to think. There's the one lawyer dude who's got the sword cane.
Mm-hmm.
Every time he's in there, I kind of have that. I can kind of hear that British kind of voice to him. I'm like, okay, he's kind of cool. In a way, he kind of reminds me of the Beagle. The young Alfred kind of, where he was the British secret agent type of deal. So I kind of like relate that to sort of style. And there's one dude who's, God, I can't think of his name, but he's like very. I kind of refer to him sometimes as Ape Boy, just because
Monk.
he's got that kind of...
That's Monk.
Yeah, there you go, Monk. Those two probably usually stand out the most for me. I like when I read their stuff going, because I can, in a way, like, as I said, the one I equate to kind of like an Alfred style, and, in Monk, I can understand a guy like that. I'm like, okay, yeah, these are, just kind of people that I'm like, yeah, I can get behind these guys. But, once again, I still don't even know what the lawyer's guy's name is. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Monk's my favorite because Monk's got your back. Monk's one of those guys that you just know when the chips are down, Monk's got your back. He's probably going to fall with you. You're both going to get beat up pretty good, but Monk is going to stand there with you for the whole fight, no matter what happens. Actually, that is one of the things I do like about this world is the fact that there's that sense of danger where if you're following Doc Savage, you're all going to get hurt. At some point.
It ain't going to be clean.
No. But yet they keep fighting on. So I do like that element of First Wave. Like, there is there's this sense of real danger in this world, and it's something I'm wrapping my head around. Your comparison to Legion, where as far as I didn't have that problem with Legion because I knew enough about the characters that I was connected to it. Because I at least had a longer history with the Legion than you've had. I've read it at broken runs during times.
Right.
But you're talking about how you felt, I don't feel like I know everybody well enough yet. And I think that's part of what it is. Yet I like getting to know them. So I think Doc Savage is deal and why it's not quite up there with the Spirit yet is, I think because Doc Savage has this squad and I'm still getting to know them, I don't have the attachment yet. That's a great comparison that you have. I just don't feel that it's there. Yet it's another book that it's not on my chopping block because I'm interested enough. Like Monk, I know. I'm into him. I'm digging it, and I dig the whole premise. I don't feel like I know everybody yet. And Doc Savage isn't always the most personable of fellows. So it's really got to be, your attachment's got to be to his team a lot of times because they're kind of your running buddies. And I don't feel like I know them well enough yet, if that makes sense. So I don't think Doc Savage is as accessible as them. And I think that's by design. I think he's supposed to be that way. And I like it. I don't have a problem with that. But I got to get more attached to the running buddies because of that. So I think that's kind of the reason why. Unless I don't know if you find him more personable than I do. But I don't think he's one of those guys you're not supposed to feel like you can hang with Doc. Nobody can.
Yeah, I don't think I can sit down, drink a beer with Doc.
No. Jim, I want to jump back to Legion of Superheroes number 8, which really we only talked about very, very briefly. This whole thing with the Durlans coming in and it whole being about Brand and how they feel that the Legion and the Council and everybody were more the Council was targeting him and the Legion should have protected him. So there's a lot of blame going on about them where they're almost like a cult worshiping Brand as a martyr for their people without knowing the true story. They don't care to hear the true story. They've made their own decision. They've developed their own fiction, their own religion for what Brand was all about, based on the good acts that he did do for them, because he did do good things for them, so I get it, but they look at him more as a religious figure. I really like that, because I get it. I'm like, and it's almost to the point right now that they have so crafted their plans around their feelings and thoughts on what happened to Brand, that it's almost like for them to accept the truth would be to crush everything that motivates and drives them. I like that. I think there's something interesting because I understand them as villains. They're totally misguided and fanatical, but yet there's something that feels honest and true about it, that would really happen. And I get it. And this whole bit with the secretary, this is something where I needed a second read through. I didn't realize he died. Because, the second time around when Dreamgirl was coming back in and, they were defending the secretary. It was Colossal Boy and Earthman shows up and they were defending the secretary. And I thought at the end, when I saw Earthman standing there, half kneeling down, breathing, and I'm going to go back into the fight, but in that moment, I didn't realize this guy died because I thought Earthman was just collecting himself post the fight, and that she was just commenting on the fact that Colossal Boy was knocked out and he was, breathing heavy. Yeah, I thought that the secretary was knocked out, but then I went back and I read it a second time and I realized, well, the only way he would have been knocked out is if that Durlan got to him. Yeah. And if the Durlan got to him, that means that he beat Earthman to do it. And the secretary's dead. Yeah. So the secretary's dead, right? I am reading that right.
Oh yeah, I'm. I think there's a scene you can kind of see some blood coming out of his mouth if you look at the one. I'm trying to find the panel. Yeah. Yeah.
There's definitely blood coming out of his mouth, which I took as could have been a shot to the mouth. But no, I'm with you 110% that I think he's dead. So which is kind of funny, and how sometimes a second read through will really, as you're going through, kind of help you collect all your thoughts on it, which kind of fits our discussion before. But it's interesting how they're targeting people that not only were targeting Brand in the case of the Council, where they feel the Council really targeted him and there was a conspiracy to take down Brand, but those close to Brand, like the secretary, who they're feeling should have protected him. And the funny part is the secretary is taking responsibility for these people that were in the leadership group because he selected them, which shows how much Brand had faith in the secretary to say, hey, pick who you think are the right ones that should be leading the people. So it's funny how, there's that kind of relationship there. And yet this is a person who the Durlans are branding a traitor. That fight was so cool with Colossal Boy where Earthman comes in. And where it got really cool for me was when Earthman showed up, because Colossal Boy was going toe-to-toe, and we saw that the Durlans are capable of making themselves much larger. And they're showing us tricks that we don't normally see from Chameleon Boy. that there actually are things they can do that we haven't realized yet, like increasing their mass that much to be able to go to the same size that Colossal Boy can. And he was surprised by that. But I loved seeing Earthman go toe-to-toe with the Durlan when he started taking on the power set of the Durlan after taking after taking Colossal Boys first. Because it would make sense with Earthman's power shifting, that he can jump from power to power to power, that to take the powers of a shapeshifter would be something where he would have an advantage at, because he's used to taking on multiple powers. Like, he would think a little outside the box. Like, ooh, let's pull in this, let's pull in that. Like, he pulls in the multi-arms, then he changes into a metal, then he changes into this. I really liked seeing that aspect of Earthman, showing that he has some experience in some different eras, and seeing what he brings to the team. Every time he shows up, I'm finding something new and interesting about this guy that is shocking me. That fight sequence with him, I thought, was absolutely brilliantly written and drawn.
Yeah, and I liked how kind of Earthman, when he sees Colossal Boy really opening up, going, dang, that's pretty good. He kind of like earned a little bit of Earthman's respect by just, showing he's not just a little wimpy Legionnaire. He can throw down when he needs to. And, Colossal Boy recognizes that he can unleash full strength on this guy, opening up full powers against him. I thought that was just a cool kind of moment, whether it's, plays out later on or it was just one little panel kind of deal. I like seeing that growth and recognition Earthman has towards the other Legionnaires, that there is something to them.
Now, we see Dawnstar brought in by Tellus, and they've basically recovered her from the sequences that we saw in Adventure Comics. I really liked it. I hope that this is something that we get to see more of. I loved this feel like we got multiple Legion books this month.
Yeah.
I liked the continuing adventure. I was used to that when Legion of Superheroes and Legionnaires was being published, that this would happen a lot in those books. It was very common to see this kind of reading. And it almost added this feel like we got a bi-weekly Legion book going on. And where it fits, I would like to see more of it, because this kind of leading into each other bit really works here. But again, poor Drake has to watch over it, which has more feeling, because you see him talk about the fact that he loves her. Talk about a relationship between the two. The two love each other, and there is an actual relationship between them. But with him being disembodied like he is, they're sacrificing a lot as a couple, and I find that very interesting. It just shows what love really is between the two characters. I actually find that very interesting to see these characters from different kind of situations, that yet they still find an emotional attachment between the two of them. There's something cool about their story. Yeah. I just think it's really neat. And it really is because they respect each other as warriors.
Oh, definitely. They got a groovy love.
You're not going to start singing Groovy Kind of Love, are you?
No, I'm not. Well, I had a couple songs going through my head. What's love got to do with it? Groovy Kind of Love. The What is Love? Dun, dun, that the old dance song, kind of deal. But
really?
I had a couple of these. As soon as you started talking about their, those two, their relationship, those things just started going through my head. But yeah, it is cool seeing him there. He did it all for the glory of love. Oh,
jeez. I like that Tellus, when the Doctor was taking away Dawnstar, was reading the mind of the Doctor.
Yeah.
To just kind of let Wildfire know that, hey, the Doctor thinks that she's going to be all right. Which would be very comforting to know that in the head of the Doctor's not questioning that. The Doctor's really thinking in that direction, which was something that it would be
is
good.
He telling the truth?
Tellus?
Yeah.
Do you think that Tellus is one to be like a deceiver? I guess from what I've seen of Tellus seems like there's an honest conviction there, where I think Tellus would tell his team members what they want to know, wouldn't manipulate them. Mm-hmm. I could see Tellus maybe manipulating a bad guy, but I couldn't see Tellus doing that to a team member. I think Tellus is one of those where, I don't know, just my experiences with reading Tellus in the time frame that we've been reading, there's something noble about Tellus. I just feel that way. So I don't think that Tellus was lying, even to protect the feelings of Drake. I don't see that being the case, because I think Tellus would not think to do that. That's just my thought, though.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement. I don't think he would do that. And I don't know. It just it was something that did pop in my head, and when I was reading it, I was looking at the panels, seeing if there was like some nonverbal communication or something like that. I could tell from him that he wasn't being completely honest, or he was trying to comfort Drake, saying, "I think it's going to be okay," kind of deal. But I don't know. On one hand, I don't think he would do it, but I wonder. I always wonder that kind of stuff whenever there's those moments, because people do that just to, hey, don't worry, everything's going to be okay, when you're sitting there thinking, they ain't got a chance.
I just don't see him, and I totally agree with everything you're saying as far as reasonings why and all that. I don't see him as being the kind of guy to do that, though. And I also don't feel that this is one of those types of situations where you would need to. Like, there was nothing that was presented to indicate that, like, she's really in dire straits. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like it got to that point in the story where it was one of those types of things. I guess I could see an emotional reason where Tellus might consider doing that. I just didn't feel that there was any reason in this story for it to be the case. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll see. If we don't see Dawnstar back for the next issue, maybe we'll... Tellus was lying. He fooled us. Talking about combat sequences, I talked about this a little bit earlier in the segment, Dream Girl. I loved seeing her fight in this whole thing, and really showing that she had to learn how to be a full-scale combatant. A lot of times when you see her talking outside of combat, she comes off very cocky, distant from the team members or something like that, and when you see her in the combat arena, though, it's like, whoa. I get why she at one point in time was a Legion leader, and that besides that cockiness, she can back up a lot of what she's saying. She's going toe-to-toe with a Durlan, mm-hmm. And because of her training, because she's gone through a lot of combat training, she's able to compensate for the differences she has from this shapeshifter. I thought it was a cool action sequence that really, really worked for me, where she was using her weight and the weight of the Durlan as a weapon, using balance shifts and things like that, where that aspect of it really worked for me.
Well, wasn't she trained by Karate Kid?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So, because they had that whole relationship, right?
I don't know what her relationship was with Karate Kid. Her relationships with Starboy or Starman. That's who her love is. I don't know what her relationship was with Karate Kid. I remember her being trained by him. She may have it. There's been a lot of Legionnaires who've had relationships with other characters. Starman was always, when he was Starboy, was always kind of moony-eyed for her, and eventually she gave into that relationship, but there may have been other relationships along the way, including Karate Kid. I don't know. I know she was trained by him, though. I think I'm almost positive you're right on that. But it was cool to see. I just thought it was cool to see the way that her combat sequences were written and drawn here, I should say, because each of those panels, I thought, really showcased the way somebody with a smaller body frame size could take out somebody with a larger one, using their weight against them in those sequences, and then using her own weight, obviously, on top of that to add to the damage. And I love how she recognized that she hadn't caused any damage yet when she threw him over her head. Mm-hmm. No damage yet, but that'll change, and all that whole sequence. There was something about the way that just all played out. I like seeing a competent combatant on the field, and that really was written well. I love that there's a distinction between each of these Legionnaires. There's experience in all of them, like Element Lad, I was talking about him earlier. I loved seeing his experience, but his experience was power-based. You got to see him use his powers in really unique ways. Her experience is going to be a little bit different. They rely on her a lot of times for her foreshadowing of things to come, and that is something where one of the limitations are she can't control always when those come. Sometimes they don't come when you really need them to, in certain moments where she didn't see this coming. But that there is more to her than just that. And it was kind of a cool sequence of events that made me respect her more in that particular battle. And added more to her cocky sequence at the end. The Durlan's going after Cosmic Boy, the one Durlan, and seeing him reveal himself that the chief, that Cosmic Boy had no idea the chief had been compromised. We got to see that a few issues ago. But now seeing that play out where he's asking the question, you were right there. You claim to be a friend of his. Especially this is a founding member of the Legion. So, you were there with Brand at the beginning. You shook hands with him. You guys made this pact together. You were supposed to be his friends. You were standing right there. How could you let this happen? That's a real world question that anybody would ask of somebody when they're on the outside looking in to that closest person who is standing there. How could you let this happen? I loved that.
Yeah, especially you look at Kaz's power base. He could have very easily stopped it if he hadn't been caught off guard. He was surprised. And it's that whole, you have that moment of shock and awe that you can't react. And like, oh my God, what just happened kind of deal. And then you can react. And so on one hand, I completely understand why they didn't stop it. It was, a surprise attack. It came out of nowhere. Especially who it came from, they didn't, see any of this whole thing coming. But on the other hand, again, with the Durlans, they're a villain group that you can sympathize with. You can understand their passion. You can understand their anger. You just look at who was there when he died. The power levels that were there. You mean one of them couldn't have foreseen it coming? One of them couldn't have done something? I understand just... It's funny because I understand them, but I disagree with them, but I understand them. And I think that's part of my enjoyment, seeing them be the villains.
Well, and see, that's just it. The best villains are the ones where you can disagree with them, but understand them.
Yeah.
That's why is Lex Luthor so cool when he's well written? Because most writers who write Lex Luthor and really get the character know how to show us a well-rounded individual that you can't help but go, okay, I get what he's saying. I don't agree with him. He's a little nuts, but I get it. This works in this case because of it. It's something that I really love about the Legion is the heroes and the villains. You get them. You get to know them over time. And it's fun to enjoy getting to know them. It's one of the reasons, why do we get off on the first wave tangent? I think a lot of that fits here because a lot of what I'm hoping for with the first wave is that I have these moments with that where I'm like, okay, over time I didn't understand them before, but now I'm starting to get these characters and I'm finding something. I'm hoping I get this from first wave. So that's why it's like, why did we go off on that tangent? I felt it was really appropriate here to talk about two distinctly different groups that I've had more time with the Legion than I've had with First Wave, and I feel like this group has grown on me. This is my hope for First Wave. I'm hoping that First Wave grows on me the way that the Legion has. Spirit has, 110%. I think that book is spot on, because I feel like I understand him, his motivations, and his supporting cast, including Dolan, who has that gray area where you could argue that he was... And I even understand the Octopus as a villain, in that whole world. I don't feel I have that same understanding quite yet of Doc Savage or of the actual First Wave mini, but when I get those, I'm hoping that I get the same feel that I'm getting for this, because Legion is incredible.
Yeah,
I can't get enough of this. I would love this to be published weekly, and I'm not kidding on that. It's one of those books where every time I get another episode of it, and I think because there's so many characters that I'm left wanting more. I want to know more. I want to see more of the Legion. Like, what are the characters that we haven't seen on screen that we've seen in previous issues doing right now? Was it Tyrock? Is that the guy with the sounds?
Yeah.
I kind of, I don't know if I have his name pronounced right or not. I don't know everybody's names, but him, I loved the whole exploration of his powers. I want to see more of him. What more can he do? These are things that, like, when they're not in the book, I'm thinking of these characters still. Polar Boy, we didn't get to see him this issue. What's he doing right now? I want to know these things, because I actually care. And that's a nice thing about when you have a squad this size. It works in Green Lantern Corps, and it's working here the same way. There's a lot of comparisons, I think, between this and Green Lantern Corps that I think is working for me. Because Green Lantern Corps, we don't always see every member of the Green Lantern Corps that are showcased every single issue. But when they do come in, they come in strong. And Legion's got that as well. And this is just great writing because of it. I think great writers can handle large teams and make them work by knowing when to phase people in and out. So you get an attachment to them, but you don't lose that attachment along the way. And this is working in this series as well. Legion, I'm thrilled with. Do you think that there's a benefit to having both books, Jim?
Oh, definitely. It's one of the, kind of that whole, you get that feel, it's the continuation of the story through the two books. You got like the kind of the every 2 weeks feel, and it's something that I'm kind of really enjoying, just getting, now I do wonder if people who are only getting the Legion of Superheroes title, if they're getting the full kind of feel from the story that we're getting, but it's definitely, for me, I'm glad I'm doing it.
Well, this was the first issue, and maybe I'm wrong on this. This was the first issue to me that of Adventure Comics that you felt like you needed to read that prior to Legion of Superheroes.
Right.
Because normally the Adventure Comics stories have taken place in the past of Legion history, like when the Legionnaires were younger.
Yeah.
Because the one before this issue was the one where it showed Lightning Lad's death. And that was definitely way back in the Legion's past. That's actually a story that I've read in the showcase volume for Legions. So I was glad to see that story kind of brought back in because it showed us Saturn Girl's relationship with him. Do you prefer the stories that take place in the past or the ones that take place in present day in Adventure Comics, or do you like the mixture? What do you have a preference?
I like the present day. I like the fact that we have 2 Legionnaire books.
Okay.
2 Legion, superhero books. I like seeing that, and again, it's one of those things where there's so much story to be told with such a team this large that 2 titles make sense for it.
Do you like them to be continuing like this?
Oh God, yeah. I would love for it to continue this way.
Yeah, I like this issue too. I'm kind of torn because I did like. I've liked some of the stories in the past that have served as ways to show there was a prehistory to all this. So I guess I'm a little bit more open to flexibility between the titles, but yet I just got done saying that I'd love this to be weekly. So I'm with you in the sense that if Adventure Comics went to being just a continuing, ongoing story set in the same time frame as a Legion of Superheroes book, I'd be giddy as can be. I think what Levitz is doing as far as how he's handling this whole future universe has been spot on. And I really love that it feels like it's a part of DC, and it's a part of the rich DC history, especially with the stuff we're seeing with Green Lanterns and the references to the past history, yet it's its own bubble. And events from the past changing can affect the future, but yet we can still get big, huge, epic storylines in the future without them being derailed by events in the past. So big events can be going on in the DC universe, and they don't necessarily have to derail what's going on down here. The Legion is just a book that if you aren't reading it, I think it's very accessible, but I think you need to read it for a few issues before you get a feel if it's right for you. It's definitely one of those that I think you need a good, strong arc, because Jim, it took you quite a while to get attached to everybody.
Yeah, it took me a lot, and it was funny because I came on the whole Mark Waid, Legion of Superheroes, so it was a different Legion than the one we're seeing here. So when this Legion started, the stories continued for this Legion, I once again was like, okay, I got to get a groove as to what's going on here, who these people are. I know them, but are they the same as what I knew before? So it took some adjustment to. Not as much because I already had a pretty good solid knowledge of them by the time this series rolled around. But it definitely took some time.
Do you feel that it helped you or it hurt you to have the previous series?
Oh, it helped me, definitely. Because, it was, again, that previous series was my introduction to who these are, what's so cool about a Legion story. So when that whole series ended and this new one started up, but not new, it's back to the more original Legion, I already had a comfort level with them. I just needed to know the little tweaks and the peculiarities of this Legion group.
Do you feel like this is your Legion now? Because I know that you mentioned before that was your Legion, that group. I started off with this Legion. I followed the complete run of the Legion that you're discussing right from the beginning to the end. And probably that was the longest run I've ever followed of the Legion. I followed very broken runs of the previous Legions, multiple eras. So I was comfortable with the idea that the Legion continuity has changed somewhat over times. But now to have this Legion back, it was, for me, the comfort zone was a lot higher, I'm sure, than yours. Do you feel like still an attachment to that other Legion as being your Legion, or have you connected to this one? How does that work for you?
I've connected with this one. It's if that other one were to pop up, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. It'd be like going and visiting old friends again. But I now have new friends that I hang out with. So this group for me isn't any better than the other group. They're just, different, but they're still my friends. Both teams are, kind of my Legion now, and each one has that cool element that I enjoy in a Legionnaire story. It's just a little bit tweaking here, a little bit tweaking there. So it's, for me, I'm not being too possessive of this Legion group or the previous Legion group. It's an overall just enjoyment of who they are and what they are.
Yeah, I was kind of curious to see how that worked out for you. I know this has been a great series, so I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it.
Oh, no,
You don't?
It's funny, Jim, and trying to decide what we're going to talk about right now. There's been a number of things that we want to talk about either this week or next week. We actually put too much stuff on the slate for this show. But one of the teams that you and I have both been saying week after week we want to talk about is JSA. So I really want to make sure on this episode that we get a chance to talk about this team. And it started with Justice Society of America number 45. Now, I've been enjoying the JSA. I liked Bill Willingham's run. I liked that future story a lot. And it was funny when the team went into the JLA crossover, and then we got the new creative team, because I've been hearing a lot of negative feedback about the JSA. I just haven't been feeling that way about it. But how have you been feeling about the JSA prior to Guggenheim taking over?
I've been enjoying it. It still had the same kind of cool story feeling. I wasn't as passionate and, psychotic about it as I was maybe in some of the previous runs, but I still was enjoying it. I didn't have anything negative really to say about it. I liked JLA crossover. I liked where the stories were going. It was a constant, solid read for me month after month. So it was another one of those things where people are like, oh, this is, I'm like, really? Are we reading? I couldn't see any hatred or anger towards it.
It wasn't the Johns run, and I wasn't. That's how do you follow that? That run was so long and huge. It was. He had the opportunity to talk about what James Robinson's trying to do with JLA right now. He's trying to build long-term stories. He's taking the team and building it over time into a long-form story. Jeff Johns had the chance to do that in 2 runs of JSA. So, you're following a Death Star of a run, which is very, very hard to do. I will say that I don't know, for me as a longtime reader of JSA, and you had been reading it for long enough as well, I think when they went into that future storyline, it's easier to be more acceptable and enjoying that when you've read so many of the storylines that weren't set in the future. But that really, I think, setting it in the future might have been harder for new readers. I don't know. Just in the sense that, well, what are they like in present day, if that makes sense? Because there wasn't a whole lot of that. But I liked that arc quite a bit. But then we went from that, and I will say this might have been a little bit of a mistake. They went from that into a big crossover, where, again, we haven't had a chance to get to know the team in present day. So that might have been the only area where it would have been harder for maybe newer readers for JSA, but that's the only area where I could see there being any criticism of it, because I quite liked it as well. I was with you. But then, I'm coming at it as I've read so many JSA stories that this was something different. So I kind of liked the different aspect of it. Now, where I think this does tie into talking about issue 45, now we've come back to talking about present-day stories, where we're going to the past a little bit in issue 45 to build the sense of what is the relationship between Jay and Alan like. And these two have been friends forever. They've been through a lot together. There's philosophical differences at times between the two of them as far as duty and what they need to do. And one of their past mistakes is now coming back to haunt them. I love this whole aspect, because we're getting this sense of we're building a huge new status quo for this team that's going to the roots of Jay and Alan. These are 2 really strong guys. How's Wildcat going to feel about all this when it all comes down? I'm very curious. And the rest of the team, terrific, because now all of a sudden Jay's making a clear decision that is going to affect and impact the whole team. I thought the first 2 issues of Guggenheim's run so far, because he wrote this issue and the previous one, I thought have been a home run so far of going back to the roots of what worked in JSA.
Oh, definitely, kind of deal. And it was funny, you mentioned how with the timeline, the time travel one, and just how that was, you think about that story, because that was building on a previous story arc, then a previous story arc. It was like a multi-story arc build to that final whole, flashback kind of sequence, and then some of the present-day, one-shots where it was wrapping up. See, for me, that kind of story is a cool way of usage of the team. It was, talking about just, not just how are they normally and here's how they are now. It was, just an overall, where did these different pieces come from? And as we're starting into this, the current story arc going on, and we're really getting more building on in 45, it's got that same kind of feel to me. And that, for me, is something I really enjoyed about previous JSA stuff that I've read, where you have this going on, this going on, this going on, and oh yeah, these couple panels over here are going to build to a future story later on. And I'm seeing that kind of stuff go on with the current JSA stuff now, especially with everything we got going on here, where they kind of show us some of the past stuff that Alan and Jay did, but now it's coming back to, we're dealing with the future. We're dealing with what's going to happen. And, a couple story arcs from now, some of these stuff are going to come play out again, with, Mr. Terrific, with Ted, how he's going to deal with all this stuff. And that's, for me, is what makes these really solid, fun stories.
It's funny how a lot of what's going on here reminds me of some of the questions that are being asked in Grounded, where, they just, in the last issue, had this big fight with, was it Shrike, where he just... Not just the battle with the JSA involved destroying this whole town of Monument City. Characters are dealing with the fact that, and we saw at the end of the issue, Alan Scott being blamed for this. And I didn't quite get that. I'm like, what? That's a little harsh. I'm like, really? Dude's paralyzed in there. What do you mean he's blamed for this? This issue, we find out why. In World War II, this Nazi project that the two of them were sent in to shut down involved an infant. Now, this is a morality issue. You and I love soldier stories. I love war stories. I love the sense of duty. I love following orders. I love the sense of, but you get into this morality. What if the order is to kill a baby? Granted, it's a baby that's obviously been constructed in some experiment or something like that, but you're still looking at an infant. What would you do? Do you follow orders? Or do you say, morally, I can't do this. We need to find another way? Which was Alan's thinking on this. And I love that even though in the flashback with the senator, where the senator's talking to them, the senator's saying, you two fought, didn't you? That's how you heroes handle things, which is, we as readers know that that's the rule. How do two heroes handle things? They duke it out, and that's what we all want to see on the page anyway. But the senator's bringing that, and I love when writers do that. They say the thing that we readers all know is what happens anyway, and they're like, obviously you two duked it out. We know you do. You always do that anyway, right? So I love those kind of things where writers really keying into fandom and making us feel comfortable with it. Guggenheim did a great job with that here. It's really worked. Scott Collins' artwork worked great in the whole battle sequence between the two because we didn't see the ending. We didn't see the end result, but Jay's dialogue let us know what it was. Well, he's wielding the most powerful weapon in the universe, and, well, I run fast. And that was a great way to explain the situation. Jay Garrick was, it was a humbling moment because to me, the Flash is super cool. I love Jay Garrick. My respect level for Jay Garrick, he's probably out of the older heroes. I respect Alan Scott an awful lot, but I give a little edge to Jay. And maybe I think it's because of the Wade and John's run of the Flash. Wade, especially when Wade did those. Every Flash was a member of it, and seeing Wally's respect for Jay, I think my attachment to Jay comes from Wally's respect of him so much, and that carried over into JSA. I think it's so much what I'm seeing. I've got a slight edge in my love for Jay. And seeing him in that moment where he was being kind of humble and saying, well, I run fast. That really worked for me there. And there's something human about Jay. I think that's where my connection is to him, too. Like, I feel like I could sit in a family room talking to Jay, and, Jay would listen to everything you were saying. Mm-hmm. And he would be totally interested. He's got that grandfather feel to him, yet you feel like he's a strong grandfather that can go out and save the day. And there's something cool about that. It just all seems to work for me. And I love Jay Garrick because of that. But that whole sequence of events with Alan, what are they going to do with him? They've got him paralyzed, right, with the halo on him. What's going to happen with Alan?
And not only that, just the power of the Starheart. It doesn't look like he's able to access it even. So there's something huge going on there because we've seen that power is, if it's unchecked, bad things happen. So if Alan can't access it, if Alan can't control it, where did it go? Did it do something funky or freaky?
And why isn't it helping him?
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. And it's funny because you sit there and you see that small baby, and that's your target, and no way. It's one of those things where how can you do it? Even if knowing what this thing would turn into, you still look at it and you still see this small child, and you got to feel for them, what they had to do, how it had to go, because these are just two of the closest friends you can imagine, and they're completely on the opposite sides of things, and it's there's so much going on in my head when when you see these sequences, because you talk about just the fight sequence, the humbling of Jay, but it was even more than that. This is when you're in combat with somebody, when you're that the guy who's got your back, and it's and you're coming to blows with that guy over something like this, that goes beyond anything, like kind of like just add to the emotional strain as well of just what he was going through in his mind, the two of them were going through when they're fighting this out, and then the fact that you're going over is the mission, do you complete the mission, do you go what's morally right, is it actually morally right, why are you doing this kind of stuff. It's every time I read through this issue, I kept getting like a different kind of emotional reaction, and it wasn't just a base reaction of the thought of killing a child. It was thought of killing a child, thought of throwing down with my best friend, the thought of, okay, if I win this fight, that means I'm fighting to kill a child. So it's like there's so many different levels of emotional reaction, and then add to it, you got this jerk who was part of that un-American, the basically kind of like the McCarthy kind of hearings, who took them to trial for what they were doing, and that whole ending of the era of the JSA kind of deal. So you got multiple levels of just anger and emotional reaction going on here, and that was something I really enjoyed out of the artwork. Especially like the darker tones, the heavier shadow influences, but it wasn't like a heavy shadow that it covered the face. It was just like increasing the crease lines on it, kind of giving them a little bit darker tone than what I normally would get out of a JSA story. I usually do think brighter, kind of energy type of, they're the ultimate, they're the good guys for the good guys kind of deal.
Amen. I totally agree with you on that. They are they're the good guys of the good guys thing. They are the brighter team, but I actually want to comment on because you're talking about the artwork right now, and I want to echo your thoughts on there and just say, is it just me or is Scott Collins' artwork, and it's Mike Atiyeeh on colors? I don't know what kicked these guys up a notch or what they're doing, but the artwork on this is really sharp. Every page for me was a joy, and it really felt like Collins is trying to do, like Collins and the colors, they're both trying to do something a little bit different and really kind of look at this book thematically. And I don't know what it is. And maybe it's just me. I don't know if you're feeling the same way. I've seen a lot of Scott Collins art, and there's times where I really, really love it. And there's times where I just enjoy it. This artwork in particular, there's just a home run out of the park. I'm like, woof. We've kicked it up a whole other notch to a whole new level with this. It just feels fresh. It feels different. It's like he's trying to do something a little different. And I think the colorist, it's just a great team of what they're doing. I don't know if you feel the same way about that.
Oh, definitely. And you look at the page where they show the baby. Mm-hmm. If you look at that page, you see, where they're arguing over what they should do. Like they have those, as I said, it's not a shadow that covers, it's an increasing of the creases and that kind of stuff, giving it a little darker tint. The flesh, the uniforms a little bit darker, and then you get to the child. And it's really open, really light, and you just kind of have that. You can kind of see the light kind of bathing the child and the kind of stuff, where you're just looking at them, and it's just that great contrast between the two.
I think it looks like a creepy little baby with the little with the pale white skin and all that stuff. I didn't get the feel. Which really? I'm not saying you're wrong. Hold on.
Of a child.
No. See, I'm looking at it as this looks like an experimental baby. And it added more to the sense of the connection to me that it was Shrike. And I'm saying on top of all that for myself, and I'm not saying you're wrong. You felt that way. That's great. And you're right. You're perfectly right to feel that way. That's just the way you interpret it, and that's cool. On my end, I didn't get that feel. I was just the opposite. I'm like, this creepy little baby's going to turn into that creepy guy. And yet I still couldn't kill him. I get totally in Alan Scott's corner on this one, and I'm a Jay Garrick guy, which is really important about me saying that Jay is my dude. But I can't imagine Jay being able to, even if Jay saying he's able to do it there, and the two came to blows over it. If Jay won, could he do it? I just don't see that happening. I don't believe it's in Jay's character, and I actually I actually want to take him out and slap him around if he could do it, because morally I'm like, how do you kill a baby? There's so many mass murderers throughout history that as a baby, I'm like, morally, to kill a baby? I don't know how you could do that. It just, I don't get it. You know, I would like literally, if it's a matter of, I know that I would like try to raise that baby better.
Exactly.
But I couldn't kill the baby. I just couldn't do that. That's where we get, it's a whole different moral dilemma there.
You take the child away, you use your super speed, take him back to the States, hide him, raise him as your own, figuring I can raise him to be a good kid, to use whatever powers he has for truth, justice, and the American way, etc., kind of deal. That kind of mindset is where I would be at for this mission. And I tell my boss, hey, I killed the kid, yeah, we disposed of the body, and all that kind of stuff. And in reality, the child was somewhere else safe. That's how I would have looked at this and approached this mission.
I think nurture beats nature. I really do. I think, the right family with the right upbringing, it doesn't matter who the, birth parents were. I think sometimes the issues that birth parents have chemically, that can sometimes affect the brain, can sometimes be passed on to a child. But there's nowadays, thanks to modern medicine, there's all kinds of ways to help with that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
That can help the family that really is caring and nurturing to help any child overcome so many unsurmountable things. I'm a big believer in the power of parents and strong, good parenting for those parents that like. So I mean, I morally, I can't kill a baby. I love the argument here, though, because they're soldiers and they're dressed like soldiers, and I love their soldier costumes. Showing that there's where their loyalty is. This is the Justice Society of America, and they're there for. As soldiers. They're there as warriors, fighting for a country that they believe in. And there can be mistakes there. The orders are mistakes. And that's the true deal with when you're in wartime. The orders that you're given sometimes are wrong, morally. That's part of war. Because that's humanity. We're a human. It's not perfect. We're not infallible. And sometimes mistakes can be made. And sometimes orders are given without the full information being revealed to the soldiers in question. Did they know what they were walking into? Well, clearly not. And did the intel tell their leaders what they were walking into? Well, not necessarily. So the orders that they were given by their superiors, they may not have even had the information that was a baby. And sometimes they may have been withholding it. Who knows? But that's the whole interesting thing about this storyline where it gets really deep. It's not only that they were having this argument and debate, but what would their superiors have said? And we see what ends up happening. They didn't even kill the baby. No. They dumped the baby away. I don't know if that was...
They tried to contain the kid, and it didn't work.
No, which, it's what was going on when they were trying to contain the kid. And then here's the problem that I have. So we tried to contain this kid in the black hole, quote unquote, right? So they tried to keep this kid locked up there. Well, what were they doing to help this kid cope? To help this kid grow up to be somebody different than he became? Is it Alan and Jay's fault? Or is it the fault of the people who were raising this kid? What were they doing? I want to see how this kid was brought up. I'm very interested in that story.
Yeah, this kid definitely was brought up as an experimental kind of deal. They probably poked and prodded him and did all sorts of wonderful, just horrific stuff to him. And again, it's nurture over nature. I really do think if somebody else had raised this kid, if this kid was brought in a more positive light, he would have been not what he turned into. He would have actually been something that could have been used for good.
If he was brought up in a society of heroes who were raised to help kids, become better heroes, which
Exactly.
is where, is the JSA going to go back to that kind of attitude where it's like, we're going to build better heroes. We're going to be the leader. Not even build better heroes, build a better society, help humanity with a better way of life, kind of fix some of the things that we did, because I love this whole debate over the collateral damage. We don't clean up the mess. Well, this isn't just clean up to us. This is our homes, and they're gone. What do you mean clean up? We're not just clean up. That's kind of a true reality, because I love superheroes. We read superhero comics all the time. I don't know how I'd feel about superheroes if the home I'm sitting in right now to record this with you was gone.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, well, we don't deal with cleanup. Take care, guys. Good to meet you, though. Here's an autograph. Well,
Hey,
where am I going to put it? Normally,
Little help here.
yeah, I'd put this in my comic room normally, but that's like, destroyed.
Once again, another reason to live in Cleveland. They don't have superheroes, so they don't have the metahuman destruction.
That's a good point. Well, we have Black Alice from Dayton,
Well,
and
she's
then
far
we have
enough
Sir Thomas of Cleveland,
Right.
which you notice, wait, you've never seen Sir Thomas of Cleveland damage Cleveland, have you?
No. Well, because he respects the home.
That's
He
right.
takes the fight somewhere else.
That's absolutely
Why
correct.
destroy your home court when you can destroy somebody else's?
Further proof that Sir Thomas of Cleveland is the greatest superhero of all time. But I don't know. This story is something that I'm really, really digging. Now, Jay has to come to this realization, though. This kid's still out there. I wanted to kill him. This was I wanted to follow orders and do this. If we had done that, would we be in this situation right now? And I made the choice to let this kid live. And I'm not even saying that Jay should go back and say I should have killed the kid, but I made the choice to let this kid live. Now I need to deal with the consequences. These people, this situation here, I need to listen to what they're saying, and we need to do something better. We're going to build Monument City into something better. Jay, I've heard that Jay's going to become mayor. I don't know how true that's going to be. We'll see how that turns out. But taking a look at what happened at the beginning of the arc and how this deputy mayor doesn't seem to want to take over
job.
much or seem to have the leadership of it, I kind of like the idea of having a political attachment for the JSA. Be curious to see who winds up leader of JSA at the end of this. Is it still going to be Mr. Terrific with all of what he's going through? And how is he going to feel about all this? I am very curious to see how the rest of the team, Terrific, Wildcat, the team members, how are they going to feel about this whole thing? I don't know.
One of the things that I do like seeing him, when they started doing the cleanup and they had Superman there and they showed just Superman in the background, just, rebuilding some of the buildings with the heat vision. He had the stack of the girders and he was kind of helping out. I like seeing that, and I like just that final resolve that Jay had. He's like, hey, I got to rebuild this. I'm staying, how long? Until it's rebuilt. And I did like seeing that whole thing play out, and I'm curious to see with, as you said, the political aspect of this. Some of the cool stuff that when Alan was in Checkmate, and when Mr. Terrific was in Checkmate, just that whole kind of superhero politics type of deal, and now we're getting into the nitty gritty, into local politics. It's not just government, massive, international government type of stuff. This is a local city that he's going to be the mayor of. So there's definitely some cool stuff they can go with this. Now, I'm wondering how much, if we're going to get some more bleed over from All Stars, if some of them are going to come over to the JSA to kind of balance the team out.
I hope not. I'm not saying I think All Stars should acknowledge this. I'm going to tell you why. I think the All Stars team, and we're going to be talking about All Stars next, the one thing I like about the All-Star team, I think the All-Star team is pretty balanced with older, more established JSA members and some of the newer members of the JSA. I don't want to see any of them leave, because I really think that one of the things that I've really enjoyed is, while we've had these stories going on in JSA All-Stars has really developed a consistent team, a consistent squad led by Power Girl, but having members like Sand, Atom Smasher, characters that we've seen over time. And then a number of the characters that John was developing, like Judo Master, for example, the younger Wildcat, and then, of course, mainstays like Stargirl are on that team. And Citizen Steel, who is from the John's run. So it's a mixture of that new squad, but then we've got time for some of these new characters as well who have come on the team. We're going to talk about them in a couple seconds, but I really like the balance of that team. I'm not saying that I wouldn't mind a character, Our Man's on that team as well. I'm not saying I wouldn't mind a character or two coming in to the JSA All Stars roster, but I don't really want to see anybody leave because I think that team, it goes back to kind of what we've discussed in the past few episodes about we don't need teams constantly in turmoil. I'd like to see a squad that I can follow. I really like the All-Star squad. I really think that this team's gotten together after the Magog bit in the beginning, where we had Magog was leading this team in a direction that they kind of realized that Magog didn't fit who they are and who they wanted to be. He was making it a little too militant, if that makes sense. That didn't fit who the JSA are and who they want to be. Power Girl has taken this team and really, I think, crafted this team into a really set, defined, strong superhero squad that I would not mess with. I think there's more characters on that team right now who haven't seen a lot of screen time together that I'd like to see continue to develop more on that team. That's just my thought on it. Obviously, they can't ignore what's going on in Justice Society of America, but I think JSA All Stars needs to kind of be its own thing because it's working as that. I like it as its own book that doesn't necessarily feel like it has to be constantly attached to everything that's going on in the JSA. You might disagree with me, and that's okay. One of the things I find refreshing about All Stars is it feels very much like the Justice Society of America, but yet that this team's its own squad doing its own thing, fighting the good fight. And I think they've developed into their own unique team. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know how you feel.
Because one thing I see with all these changes going on, I see Mr. Terrific staying on as leader, but not telling everybody that what's going on to him, because he knows that the team needs more experienced veterans. And he's very hoping that he could either figure out what's wrong with him, fix it, or compensate for it in other ways. So I think that's going to end up causing more problems for the team later on. The person I was thinking about making the cross back over was Our Man. And part of here's why I was thinking that. Looking at the JSA, the JSA title, it's losing a lot of its veterans. It's losing a lot of those long-term experience.
Who?
It's down 2 right now.
Who are the 2?
Flash and Green Lantern.
They aren't leaving, though. You really think that they're leaving the team and leaving the book?
Well, for temporarily.
But Dr. Midnight, come on, Dr. Midnight's going to fix Green Lantern up. Whatever's going on, that's going to be fixed by Dr. Midnight, and Jay Garrick's staying on that team's going to be moving to Monument City. And believe me, that whole team's going to be totally on Jay's not leaving the team. Now, hold on. I will say this in firm agreement with you. Either of those members permanently leave the team, I 110% agree with you that we need another veteran on there. So Let me say this. If you're right in your thinking, I agree with you. So based on the scenario you set up, amen, Jim, I 110% agree with you. I don't think that scenario is where this is going at all, though, which is why I'm adamantly saying no. So if you're right, we're completely in sync. I just don't see the scenario the same way you do. I see the JSA coming to Monument City. I do agree that the wild card in this whole thing is what's going on with Mr. Terrific and how does that apply to the team. I don't see this being the team breaking up, though. If they are, I just can't imagine the JSA without Jay Garrick and Green Lantern. I think they're going to. I think Green Lantern's going to stay there and help clean up the mess too when they get him back on his feet. Although, how long is it going to take to get him back on his feet?
Exactly. But I don't know how long it's going to take or any of that stuff. And I agree. I want to see Flash. I want to see Jay and Alan on the JSA book. I don't want to see them go away. I'm not saying that, but I'm just looking at this story. I'd like to see kind of that's how they would react. That's how All Stars react, saying, "Hey, we got 2 guys down. I'm going over there." Okay, kind of shifting amongst the team, and maybe somebody else that gives an opening for somebody else to come into the scene. Whether it's what's his name with the genie and the pen.
I want to see him on this team, though. I don't want to see him on All Stars.
Well, that's what I say. He could make an appeal. He could come on to JSA.
Agreed.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I guess I don't want to see anything taken away from All Stars because I think All Stars is working right now as is. Leave it alone. And I don't see them doing that. I think what we're going to see here, here's the way I'm taking the team, and this might be where you and I veer off, and that's okay. I see this team right now having still Green Lantern Alan Scott. I don't see this in any way, shape, or form being permanent. I see he and Dr. Midnight working this out somehow. How that's going to work out, I don't know. But I don't think that Dr. Midnight's bit was a throwaway. I think Dr. Midnight actually is meeting with Alan because Alan has an idea. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to see what that idea is. I see Alan, Jay, Wildcat, Mr. Terrific, all staying on the team. I do see, and I know we've heard at conventions that, Thunder, what's his name? Shoot. It's been so long since we've seen the kid. It's Johnny Thunder's replacement, the kid, with the Thunderbolt. I see him coming back. And I don't know if he's going to come to this team or to All Stars, but to me, All Stars, the whole premise was that the team broke off because of different philosophies between the two, and they established their own squad over there, and it's working. I think to shake them up right now is you're now taking two teams and shaking both of them up versus leaving one team that's working really solid right now in All Stars, leaving them to continue working very solid, and now focusing on let's get this team solid, get this concept solid. I guess it doesn't make, from a standpoint of storytelling, if you want to get your fans attached, I think to put All Stars in turmoil right now while you're building this team doesn't make any sense to me. And I know it seems like one player being taken away from All Stars wouldn't put them in turmoil, but to me, All Stars has a really nice balance of veterans, newer guys, and then really new guys. Yeah. And I think taking any of those veterans away from All Stars would be a detriment to that book, unless you're replacing with another veteran. Mm-hmm. And you're right, bringing Thunderbolt into All Stars, if you were right and that was the route we were going, I would go with that. It's just, to me, I don't know, putting him and Lightning on the same team, I know their powers aren't the same, but visually they kind of are. I don't know that I would put the two of them on the same team from a visual standpoint, but I could be proven wrong. I don't know. So I'm making a lot of assumptions right now, just like you are. So, I mean, there's a lot of your scenario, if it's playing out the way you're saying, I agree with. I just don't see it playing out that way.
And just so no one complains or sends us nasty emails or whatnot, the city is Monument Point, not Monument City. Yeah. I know there's somebody listening right now who's yelling at their iPod saying, "It's Monument Point."
I threw that out at the beginning too, and I think it was because we were talking about the city, and then I was trying to put the name to it, and I knew Monument was in there, and I'm like, just because I kept saying city, and that's me who did that. I'll take full responsibility for that. Monument Point, which has a rich history anyway. So it's funny that I'm goofing that one up because it's not the first time we've seen Monument Point.
Right.
Let's talk about All Stars, actually, because I think it's one of the reasons why I was so passionate when I was talking to you was not because I think your ideas were bad. I do agree with you if your scenario plays out that way that I would like to see a veteran come over to the team. Except I'd like to see Mr. America come back or something like that versus seeing somebody who's diminished from All Stars because I think it's really cool. You and I talked about this a lot over the past 2 months, and we tried to we just haven't been able to find the time to fit it in. The Cyclone storyline was really cool.
Oh, God, yeah. She's just a wonderful character, and I'm always more Cyclone the happier I am, just because she is just that embodiment of, kind of like what would happen if a comic book geek, if the geek kind of got the powers and got a chance to be on the JSA, and you could kind of see that whole spastic kind of nature she sometimes goes, where she's just going on, and I so associate with her, especially because I know people like her. And I've seen and I've met people like her in my life and just in the various travels, and I'm like, I so connect with her for some reason, just beyond just the pages, that I love seeing Cyclone stories. I love seeing her being used correctly on the team, whether it's, just as part of like a kind of a transport unit, support, the fire support that she's done a lot on, some of the combat sequences, and just their general, just her, that attitude and outlook she has, just that positive vibe. I love this character.
It was one of the things, first of all, I was worried at first when I saw the new art team on here. Not because I love the art team. I thought they did a really great job. It's just I need my Freddy fix. I'm a big fan of Freddy. But I'm a Howard Porter fan, too. So I was like sitting here like, well, I'm glad that we've got Howard Porter on, but I'm like, I really want Freddy back on this book, and where's Freddy going after all this? I was like looking on the site, and then when I saw it was a fill-in arc, I'm like, okay, now I can look at this as, and really enjoy the artwork for the creative team that filled in. Because we got a great art team here in Howard Porter and Art T-Bear, and colorists Richard and Tanya Horry, who are the regular colorists on the book. So coming back to, seeing that, I'm like, okay, great. So we got a great Freddy cover in the beginning, showcasing what's going on in this book. And then when we zip on through the page, I'm like, the artwork is really, I really applaud the art team for trying to keep to the theme and style that this book has. Because one of the things I've really enjoyed about All Stars is it's developed its own style as time's gone on. And it's really increased and grown over the time of the series. There's a definite look to All Stars. And talk about your bright book. This feels like the bright JSA book. And it was really important for me to have a consistently strong JSA book amidst all the stuff that was going on. And I think it was one of the reasons why, like, when the future storyline was going on in the regular JSA book, I was really digging it because I was getting present-day JSA stories in All Stars. And it was working really well for me. I like having these two squads, and I like that they're separate and that they have a different base of operations. I'm not saying that if Matthew Sturgis and the creative team decides, hey, All Stars has a role in all this, and they work out with Guggenheim, and they've all got like an idea on what they want to do. I'm cool with all that. But for me, what's working in this book is that this squad has an identity of its own that feels thematically very JSA. And part of it is the family feel, and Cyclone is certainly an aspect of this. This poor girl in the earlier issue was like thinking her powers were completely gone and moving on with her life. How do you do that? When you've got these nanites that were put in you so you could be a hero, now that's all been taken away from you. And it hurts even more when you see this character who tried so hard, this guy who basically had a thing for her. What was his name?
Tim.
Yeah, Tim put the nanites in himself to have these powers, and it so turned out wrong for him. Where he became power hungry because of it. It shows that with great power comes great responsibility. There's that old phrase that goes on in comics. It's true. I could see very easily, I would like to think I wouldn't be power mad like this. There's a power in me, though, that goes, what would happen if you have all this power? He's connecting with nature here. It's not just a matter of being a superhero. He's connecting with these powerful natural forces and being seduced by that power. And I want to sit there and go, boy, if I ever got this kind of power, I would hope it wouldn't be the way for me. But, wow.
It's such a natural reaction. Kind of that whole everybody wants to be special. Everybody wants to have that little X factor to them that makes them, hey, look at me, look at what I can do kind of deal. It's a normal reaction that you want to kind of stand out and say, look at me, woohoo, kind of deal. And he, in a way he was pursuing that, but he wasn't. I don't think in his mind he was thinking, ha, I'm going to be this mad scientist, evil kind of mindset. He didn't have that going in his head, but he did want more. And then as it started getting it, he was losing control and he's trying to regain, and it was just such a very normal human reaction that he was having that a villain who you don't look at as this complete evil scumbag.
No.
You understand where he's coming from. You understand how he can get to that point, and you feel a little bit sympathetic towards it.
Well, and how much was the nanites messing with him, too? What were they doing to him? You're taking something inside yourself that's a foreign body that wasn't meant for you. So what does that mean? I don't know. I really liked that aspect of it as well, where I felt, in some ways, I felt some sympathy for him from time to time in another read-through, where I'm like looking at him a little bit differently because of it. But my respect level for Maxine was through the roof, too. Dude, if there's like 11 of me in a room, I'm going to start punching somebody. If there's 11 of you in a room, I'm going to start shooting.
Hey, you getting more of me? That'd be awesome. We have our own little choir, you know.
That's why I'd start shooting. But in all seriousness, I mean, taking the me and you bit out of it, seriously, if I walked in the room and saw 11 of me, that is going to be much creepier than if there were 11 of you. Because now I'm dealing with the emotion, who is the real me?
Yeah.
Because you've got to question that. They can't all be real. And that's always got to be your first concern. And not only who do I believe is the real me, but who is everybody else going to believe the real me? Yeah. I'm somebody who used to have powers. Now these 11 other people that look like me have my powers that I don't have now. Who would you believe is the real me?
Yeah, see, I have such self-esteem issues sometimes that, one of them would step up and say, I'm the real me. I'd be like, oh, okay, you must be the real you. You know?
Except on the other hand, would you react violently to that because of that? See, I'm with you in the sense that would affect the self-esteem. And to me, I'd be kind of like, how defensive would you get after that? And I mean, I think I would. I don't know. It's psychologically, what would that do to you? I don't know. I don't think any of us know how we'd really react, but you're right. There would be a definite attack on your self-esteem as far as, and what if they like the other you better? I mean, and
this guy's cooler.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my first reaction too. What if they like him more? And they prefer the other me. That it becomes an attack on your sense of, because she talks about an identity crisis that she was having during it, and I loved that dialogue, that internal dialogue from her, where she was saying that, because I'm like, ooh, and how you would have to at some point in time question yourself, because these people are so spot on you. They're thinking like you. They're finishing your sentences. And we find out later why. And I love that it was as like the little hologram figures out for them, the real you is the one without the powers. But all these other ones have been constructed to be just like you. And I can tell because they kept their initial bone structure, that was the same one. That was how I was able to tell who was really you. I loved the whole idea and how they came up with, well, there's only one way to handle all this, the saving throw. Mm-hmm. This idea that the nanites really are trying to protect their environment, their home environment. So what if we put the home environment at risk? What if we throw you right dead center into ground zero? How will the nanites react then? Well, they will jump out and try to protect you, which was their original purpose, was to give you the powers, was to be your home environment. They would protect their home over everything else. So the remaining nanites jumped out of him, the ones that weren't really attached to him, jumped out of him and back into her. What a gamble to take, but one that made logical sense. It was a gamble that was very intelligent, which shows us that Maxine a lot of times, which is in her goofiness, it's a lot of times hard to remember that she's actually quite smart in her geeky way. And we get to see her react in a very intelligent manner. And I really loved that exploration of this story that, don't, just because Maxine can come off a little bit obnoxious from time to time, don't let that fool you. This girl actually has a brain in her head. And it actually, shows why, King Chimera looks at her and goes, hey, I got a thing for this girl, and I'm really going to tell her. Yeah. I get it. You get why. There isn't something attractive about her in the sense that she's fun and exciting, and yet she's smart too. And there's a full trick to her. And that's very cool to me.
It's the maturing of the superhero in her.
Yeah,
it's some cool stuff going on. It's it is one of the things that really does attach me to the character, that I'm seeing her, develop and grow as a hero right in front of my eyes. And I like that. I'm glad I'm getting that from somebody in this title. Especially you think about the All Stars as the young team. They're going to have this growth kind of stuff. I wanted to see, this is the kind of stuff I wanted to see from this title. It's, again, it has that same kind of family vibe that the JSA is supposed to, but it also kind of has like a kind of a Teen Titan vibe, in that they do have more of the younger people on the team, so there is that kind of growth and maturity of a superhero, but it's not just, Teen Titans version 2. This is JSA. This does have that solid family feel to it. So I was glad to see this kind of stuff happen, and it's, again, wondering where this is going to go.
Except now, let's take a look at the team that's on here. We got Power Girl, Hourman, Atom Smasher, Sand, Citizen Steel. I don't consider them the younger sect. I consider the younger sect to be more of King Chimera, Cyclone, Wildcat, and Stargirl, although arguably, I don't know.
See, I'm thinking Stargirl's more of a mature team.
Yeah,
She's
that's what I'm saying, too. And
that's part of the reason I was thinking they could lose Our Man from this team to send him over to the JSA. And this team would still have a solid balance of veterans as well as younger heroes. And then the JSA could use an extra, body in it to kind of like swell up their ranks.
Except, see, to me, I think that there's a lot of characters that are on the shelf right now that could be used to swell up that team's ranks. I like this team a lot, and I'm very protective of it, which I think is actually a strength of this team. That when you said that, I'm like, no, I like this team. Leave my team alone. That's how attached I'm becoming to the All Stars team. I'm passionately, I want to protect this team. I don't mind if they bring somebody else in, but even then, I'm kind of like, well, Jakeem Thunder. It was driving me nuts because I love the character. It's Jakeem Thunder. Is the one with the Thunderbolt. Jakeem, I want Jakeem back on a team. If it's All Stars, great. If it's JSA, great. To me, it makes more sense to put him on JSA right now because they could use a couple more characters over there. I like this team the way it's kind of fleshed out now in the squad that it is. Because they've got some new characters that there's plenty of room to explore, so I don't know that they need really a new character on this squad right now. But, because we got that Anna Fortune, who I think is very cool. But yeah. I feel like this is a character I want to get to know more of. I don't really know her. And then King Chimera, there's always room to get to know that guy. And then we've got the newer kid in Cyclone. And we got the newer Wildcat, who I don't feel like we've done a lot of exploration with him in this title. So I think there's a lot of room to do that. So do we need another new kid on this squad? I don't really think so. I think we've got plenty of really strong veterans. We've got plenty of new kids. I think this squad works really well. Maybe the creative team's got a chance to, maybe they want to move somebody around. That's fine. I guess I just feel like this team feels very comfortable to me right now, and I kind of want to stick with that. And if you're going to put Jakeem somewhere, put him on the other team. I'm glad to see Jakeem's going to be somewhere, because I heard that was at one of the cons. They mentioned that one of the books has plans for him. If it's All Stars, great. If it's the regular JSA book, great. Jakeem needs to be somewhere. He's been on the shelf too long. So I hope whichever team's taking him is a team that has a plan for him, because I think he's a cool kid and a cool character, and I'm glad to see him coming back. But what do you think about this Anna Fortune character? What do you think? I know we don't get to see a lot of exploration with her in this book. Do you like her, or do you feel like I like her edition as well? Yeah,
definitely have a solid like of her. I'm waiting to get the more detailed as to who she is. Even though we haven't gotten it yet, I'm still enjoying her reading. Just when she's used, I understand where she's coming from, kind of. So it's not like I'm lost or confused by the character. But I do want more information on her. I kind of would like more of the young Wildcat, more of his stuff playing out and get more stuff from him before they go to her. Because he's been around a little bit longer than she has. I'd kind of like to see some more stuff fleshing out between the two Wildcat interactions and even his interaction just with his own team and kind of stuff. I do want more of that.
I agree with you on that. So I guess that's kind of why I'm so adamant that I don't want to see a veteran jump to the other team, because I do think you need, in a JSA book, you need veterans on the team. It should feel like a team with veterans on there. Sand's been around a long time, and Our Man's been around quite a while. These are all characters that have been around for some time. I think you need a strong squad of veterans with some of this younger talent. And I think that's why I'm so adamant that leave that team where it's at and let them work with the younger kids. Because I think All Stars is working for me because of the way, over time, Sturgis has done a great job of crafting a team that really feels very JSA to me. Where in the beginning, I enjoyed the Magog bits in the beginning because I found Magog unlikable on the team. And the team was reacting to that. That's what I found intriguing. That the way that he was behaving and the way he was acting, the team was noticing it. And they were reacting the way I was. I felt a great attachment to that. I thought that was brilliant writing in the beginning with how that was all handled with Magog. I wasn't necessarily saying Magog needs to be kicked off the team. I liked how it all went down because it made perfect sense. But one thing that I was attached to was the exploration of that. Now that Magog was gone, they've replaced him with some of my favorites. They brought back Sand. I mean, the second Sand came back, I'm like, oh, yes. Then to bring back Atom Smasher. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of veterans that there's room to do things with on this team. I think there's so much more storytelling to do with JSA in the coming year. I'm very excited for with JSA All Stars, and I really wanted to distinguish that. There's so much exploration with this squad to do in the coming year that I don't want to see anybody leave because I think there's more to do with them. Like, there's nobody that feels stagnant on this team. There's nobody that feels like they don't belong or that I don't want to know more of. Power Girl being the leader, I think, is spot on home run. I hope that sticks because it just so works for me. And it makes sense. It all makes perfect sense to me. So it's something that I really like. I liked that while this storyline focused on Cyclone, the team was off planet doing the JSA thing. Yeah. Like, they were helping save this planet, and it was in the middle of a war, and they were trying to do whatever they could to end the war as peacefully as possible. It really was at the end, a very JSA ending where, everyone was thanking the JSA for ending the war, and Power Girl was really saying, well, I wish it had ended cleaner, and, that it had been better for everybody else, but there was this sense of the JSA won and saved the day. Then they get back home, and Power Girl's first question is like, seriously, what's going on here? What is the deal? Because they show up, and it's all these girls dressed like Cyclone. Yeah. What's the deal? And I would be asking the same thing. She's like, huh? What the? I chuckled like crazy in that moment because it was a very Power Girl. It like actually shows the understanding that Sturgis has for the character of Power Girl. This is the same Power Girl I'd see in her solo series right now. Whether it was the one done by Palmiotti and Gray or the one being done by Winnick right now. This is Power Girl. This is who she is. She would say that. Karen Starr, yay, home run. I love that about this book. It feels, they know the characters. I'm a big fan of All Stars, if you can't tell.
I'm a little. It's starting to come out. I'm starting to see that.
Well, it's one of the things though. This is one of those books. On the show, a lot of times we get criticized. Well, you guys seem to love everything. It's not true. There's a lot of books that I like. My frustration a lot of times in our podcast is, how many hours we do of podcasting in a month. I always feel like there's books like this that I haven't been able to give enough time to that I really enjoy. This has been it's funny, when things were going on in the other JSA book, which I really enjoyed, this has been my flagship JSA book, All Stars, because I think there's been a solid team on here that I could get behind and rally. It's one of the reasons why I was enjoying so much what was going on in Justice Society of America, because I had this as my foundation solid team. As this team came together and we got Sand and Atom Smasher and all these characters that I've been familiar with since the previous JSA series. It's like homecoming with these guys and Stargirl on here. This is no longer the team that Stargirl was like sad to have left the other team for when she came over. All of her friends are coming out of this team.
Yeah. This
team felt like home to me. And it does. So I'm very protective of this book and these teams, which is, I think, where poor Jim's trying to tell us all about why Our Man would be a great choice to move. We're like, no, you leave him right where he's at, Jim. But I mean, it was an honest, passionate reaction because this team, for me, has been my flagship JSA team, and I really applaud the creative team for maintaining that because I think it gave some room for the stories that were going on in the Justice Society of America book, where I was enjoying those as well because I had a strong set foundation team. I don't know if you felt the same way about the two books, but that was what was working for me with the future storyline going on and who's in the team and who's not and what's going on in that book. This team has a very solid, strong team, and I need that balance between the two. And it worked out very well, I think, for my enjoyment of the whole Justice Society concept.
There's times when I just let you go, and I'm like, not much more I can add to it.
JSA is cool, though, and I'm glad we finally got a chance to do a segment on it because it's something that it's one of those regrets, like Legion, and that's one of the things on this episode as we're kind of wrapping up the year. Just a couple of teams that you and I have both been really digging, and we talk about on the phone sometimes when we're chatting, and we just never seem to get to time-wise with the show because we've got to stop at some point, unfortunately. And I really wanted to make sure.
Go nonstop.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could. But these are two teams that I've really enjoyed this year. And it's a great chance to talk about why. So I'm glad we got a chance to do that.
You won't get away from me this time, Buster.
Jim, I wanted to talk real quick about some DC news. We talked last episode, actually, about a couple of things. I want to make a correction. Remember our Birds discussion about Barbara Gordon and Jim Gordon and all that?
Yeah.
Well, this week on the DC Digital Store, they re-released Birds of Prey 89 from the previous series.
Yeah.
Well, I have all the issues, and I've been kind of gradually going through and getting them, because I really liked that run enough that I like having it on the digital app. In Birds of Prey 89, she told Jim everything. Batgirl, Oracle, the whole works. That's why he's on the list. He already knows.
He does?
Birds of Prey 89, yeah.
I don't remember reading that. I'll have to track it down.
You know what? When I read the issue, I'm like, oh my, how could I forget that I read this? I remember reading it, but obviously, when we had our discussion, I didn't remember. It's one of the great things about rereading comics. Sometimes after a certain amount of time, it is like reading it over again from the beginning. It's a great issue.
89, you said?
Birds of Prey 89, yes.
Okay.
It was the big reveal in there, so he already knows. But here's the irony of the whole thing. I own that series in singles. I own the trades. I'm now buying it again digitally. What is wrong with me?
Well, do you want them alphabetical order, or do you want it in
Oh, no.
order?
It was more, I already know. I don't really need help there. It is funny, though. I really like reading comics on the iPad. Not in place of my paper ones, but it's nice to have favorites on there. I can't see myself going to my regular monthly titles because I like the paper product too much. I like having those. It is funny how I find what I'm buying on there are old favorites or some things I never checked out. So I'm like this Victorian Undead series. I'm reading all of that on the app, like I did Fringe. And that's really good. It's by Wildstorm. It's Sherlock Holmes versus the Undead. And it's as cool as it sounds. It's really an awesome series. So it does bring in a lot of characters from the Holmes mythos, but also everything you would expect from a great undead zombie story as well. And this whole idea that there's been this huge cover-up of an undead virus that occurred ages ago, and they actually built a city on top of it to hide it. The fact that they had to kill off an entire population to try and contain it. But now what happens when this virus these bodies have been found, it unleashes the virus again. Because it was that contagious that they built the city on top of it to basically bury away the disease. And now it's been unleashed again because they found it. So it's very cool. It's one I recommend highly. But it's one I picked up from the app. So it's cool. But it actually was, evidently it had to have done very well because they had a first miniseries of 6 issues. They had a special, and now they're on a second miniseries. It's one that I recommend. It's Victorian Undead, and I'm really enjoying it a great deal.
I'm going to have to get the trades on that bad boy.
Yeah. On the app, it's up to issue 5 right now, and it was a 6-issue mini. I'm going to keep following it on the app. I think it's very cool. But that's what I do a lot of times with the app. I either pick up some old favorites, or I'm picking up some series that I never checked out before. It's not really replacing my paper product, but it's expanding my reading. And it's kind of a cool thing that I'm enjoying about the app myself. So, I don't know. Some of our listeners, if anybody's downloading digitally from the DC App Store, let us know. Or not even just the DC App Store, any of them. Because all the comic companies now seem to be having these apps. And there's a lot of independents who are out there there's a comics app and that type of thing that I'm curious to see what people are reading. Has it changed your reading at all, expanded your reading at all? What are you doing digitally that maybe you didn't do before? I'm very curious on this to see how people are approaching digital comics. Or are you totally staying away from it? It's not your cup of tea. For me, it's definitely a hybrid. It's not taking away anything that I did before paper-wise. It's adding to my reading library more than anything else. So I'm just kind of curious to see what our listeners are doing on the digital end. Are you interested at all in digital? I know you and I are very different on the techie end and approaching wise, or do you just prefer paper? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just kind of curious, where do you stand on that?
I'm interested in it, and it's, every time I hear you talking about it, I think, yeah, I'd like to pick that up. Yeah, I'd like to, and but for me, I'm always gun shy when buying some form of electronics and all that. So it's not even I prefer, I must have paper and I think it's bad. It just, I don't know. I don't actively pursue technological stuff. So it's not anything. It's nothing negative against it. I just don't have it. I probably, if I had the iPad, I probably would be buying pretty heavily in the digital stuff. And there's a couple titles that I could actually see me probably even maybe replacing, because I'm like, yeah, okay, this would be kind of neat. Or how you're doing it, where you're buying just other stuff that you're not getting, different stuff.
Well, for me, it's actually cheaper to buy the paper in most cases, unless it's older material, because of the discount we get through DCB Service. So I'd rather buy the paper and support them. That's me. I like, they're basically my comic shop. Because, we know Cameron, and I've gotten to know Cameron not from our show, from his years with CGS, and the relationship they built there. I got to know him because he supported their podcast before it was even podcasting. And then, we got into podcasting, and he offered to, set up a sponsorship relationship with us. We got to know him better that way. But, he's somebody I've known a long time. So, it's many ways that is my local, even though it's an online store. I actually know the people, and we've gotten to know some of the people who work for DCB Service as well through conventions and things. So, it's become very much so people that we see during the year. Yeah. And there's a relationship there that I really like, and I've got a loyalty. So I would continue shopping with them regardless. One thing I do like about the DC app for the things that I'm getting that I've had previously, or also for some of the things that I've never read before, like Victorian Undead, when you get it for the iPad, it's also available on your PC or laptop or whatever, your entire library. So you're building a library that's available on any of the electronic device. So like if I switch to, I'm reading it on the iPad now, but let's say a few years from now I switch to Android as my operating system, there's going to be an Android app, or there might already be one now. I know there's one coming if it's not already out. It's the same comic library. So I don't have to have different comics on different apps. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like my iPad comics, and even if I kept my iPad, but let's say I have an Android phone, I could read my same comics on there. Your library travels with you. So it's, which to me, if you're going to do digital, and these companies are being smart in that they're with this Comicsology app, and that's, the whole banner company that's doing through it. I really like that concept that I can read my comics on my laptop. I can read my comics on my iPad. I can read my comics on my iTouch. If I have an Android phone, I can do that. So it's, to me, my library should be able to travel with me to new devices. I should not have to re-buy them for multiple devices. So I'm building a collection, if that makes sense. And that definitely. Me, so, it is to me. And I don't consider you or me the target audience. We've discussed this before. So, when I said Victorian Undead, the first thing out of your mouth was, I have to check that out and trade. So that's your comfort level. That's where you would go with it. I don't consider us the target audience. I'm clearly not, because what am I buying? I'm rebuying some favorites, and then I'm buying a couple things that I haven't read before. I'm clearly not the digital collector. I think there's going to be a new audience of digital collectors out there. But that's what I like about the apps. I really like this concept that you can get it on multiple devices. I think it's very cool. So anyway, Birds of Prey is what sparked that whole discussion. I thought that was I thought there was a certain irony to the fact that with such a diehard fan I am of Birds of Prey, that I've rebought this multiple times, I forgot.
Yeah. And you think, just if you remember how much in depth we went into that discussion, how long we're going back and forth with it. The fact that we already had the answer.
Well, and that was the issue that was released. Wait, the ultimate irony is, what was the issue that was released this week on the DC App Store? Birds of Prey 89. So I'm flipping it open. I'm like, you fool. But, it's the joy of rebuying it, so that opens up a whole new discussion. I'll do that on the show, though. If I buy something, either rebuy something or buy something like Victorian Undead that I haven't read before, I'll make sure to shout them out on the show, because I think it's kind of cool to take a look at, how we're handling our comic collection now that we're in this digital age as well. We have both markets to choose from. So I think that's something that's interesting to talk about. Are we approaching it at all? In your case, you may not touch it, and if you don't, that's cool as well, because I think that's interesting. I think there's different ways now to approach comic collecting. Justice League. We talked about Green Lantern. And which Green Lantern? Here's the thing. The question wasn't which Green Lantern was going to join the Justice League. Which Lantern is going to join the Justice League? That opens up a whole new can of worms, right? Now, I know you don't check out the source, right?
No, I don't.
So you don't know which one it is.
No, I don't.
But St. Walker.
Nice.
Yeah. So obviously Jade's going to stick around, which that was probably my biggest worry, because I've talked about how I want to see a consistent, strong team developed here. I want to see Robinson's long-term goals grow out of this whole thing, which to me, the only way that's going to happen is if the team stays consistent. You can add in a couple new members here and there, and I like that idea that he can pull some reservists in as well, because that to me is what the Justice League is all about. Like, did you read that Plastic Man, Green Lantern, Weapons of...
I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but okay. I have it.
I won't spoil anything. This is right in the first page. The two are teaming up as Justice League members, which means, to me, reservists, right? It's Hal and Plastic Man teamed up. So I like that idea that your superhero members that have previously been a member of the Justice League are technically still members. They're reservists to be called on. Avengers always had that concept. Justice League did as well, where they can, and Robinson talked about this in early interviews when he was talking about the Justice League and his run on it, saying that there would be members that could be called in from time to time as reservists. And Superman talks about, both in JSA and in the Justice League and all that, we've seen Superman talk about the fact that he was helping out the Justice League with this big crime syndicate thing that was going on. Granted, he was trapped outside the bubble, but... we know that he was there. I like that concept that there's a core team, but really it is the go-to team in the DC universe, so there would be other members that could be pulled in as the team needs to. That's something I've always liked as a Justice League concept, so I find that really cool. But St. Walker on the team, and the big question, I've seen this around the net, and I'm into this question as well, Jade's powers, because it comes from the Starheart, because St. Walker's powers need a Green Lantern, for the most part, right?
Well, he amplifies the power of the Green Lantern, but I think he has some powers on his own.
So I'm very curious to see how that's all going to work and what it means for Jade. Will maybe St. Walker be a help for what Jade's going through? Because we've seen her going through some dark things. Will he be a help for what Supergirl's going through?
That's my wonder. I'm wondering if that's how they clean out Supergirl, is with a little bit of... a little bit of hope. All you need is hope.
Well, the next arc is going to be an Eclipso arc, which we're finally, I'm guessing we're going to start getting some real answers as to what's going on.
Yeah.
With Jade and with things like that.
Obsidian and the whole deal, yeah.
Robinson also said that we're going to be getting a new artist. Mark Bagley's leaving and going back to Marvel. He's going to be finishing off the death of Spider-Man storyline from Ultimate Spider-Man. And we're getting Brett Booth, who did the artwork most recently on that Larfleeze Christmas special.
Okay, yeah. So
I'm excited to see that artist take over for Justice League, because I thought that the artwork looked great on that.
Oh, yeah, that was a nice-looking book.
So good choice as far as replacement artists. He did say that Starman and Congo Bill are going to be back on the team full-time in that series. The one-shot's going to bring them back in, and Brett Booth's doing the art on the one-shot, and they're going to be back on the team. He said the reason why he pulled them aside and had them do a little side story, a little side mission, was he really wanted to show the dynamic of those five against the crime syndicate, and to show how they work together, being that they were the opposite archetypes, so to speak, of those particular characters. And he just said it made sense to take those two out of the picture for this, but they said they will be heavy players in the upcoming Eclipso arc. And you'll see the whole team together. And he said by the end of that, he said, I have a long-term plan for this series and for this team. And he said, I'm doing long-form storytelling like I did with Starman. So he said, you're going to see at the end of that arc this whole team together and why they are the kick-butt Justice League. And he said, why these players are on the team. So I'm excited for that. It's something that it's been building towards. I thought the Crime Syndicate arc was a step in the right direction. And I'm curious to see where it's going to go with the next arc, seeing those two players back on the team. St. Walker, though, is a good choice. I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah, I am very curious to see how and what he's able to do. And, because it's, again, the whole where does the base of the power, can he create, is he able to do stuff, I'm sure he's able to do stuff, but, how effective is he without the Green Lantern there? Is it, the hope by itself? Can he affect the other heroes as well? We've seen him affect Rings, but why not affect other heroes? He has the ability to inspire great hope in people, so let's see how we can deal with the other heroes. Maybe strengthen, their resolve, strengthen who they are, kind of. I don't know. It's going to be curious to see what happens there.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that as well. One other thing I mentioned that I was going to take a look at over this week was I did create a villain for the DC Universe Online game. I created a character called Little Pistol. He's got the double guns and he's a speedster. So and he's tiny.
Yeah, he's tiny.
Hence the name Little Pistol. because he's a little pistol. But it's cool because your opening mission is very similar. You know, that's the training mission that you normally get, but instead of Oracle running the show, it's the calculator, and Lex Luthor comes in to help you. But everything's done from a villain's standpoint. So you're seeing that mission from a villain's perspective, and why they would have reason to stop Brainiac. So there actually is a motivation for them to try and stop this character from taking over, because obviously it takes away from their power source as well. Yeah. You know, it's all a play for power. When you get into some of the regular missions, probably one of my favorite ones is you go through Gotham. I decided to have him, and Joker's my go-to guy. You know, I'm Joker. Yeah, Joker's my apprentice. I'm Joker's apprentice, I should say. And the Joker's giving me the missions. But one of the cool things about doing those missions is, like, you'll have similar street missions that you had as a hero, but you're doing them from a villain's perspective. So it's all about taking power from another villain for the perspective of then using it against the heroes. So, like, I'll encounter the Huntress and, you know, go toe-to-toe with the Huntress, which was very, very cool with Catwoman on my side. But Catwoman's always that gray area.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when you're teamed up with Catwoman. She's got her own motivation, and it's cool to see her in this light in this game. But the Bane mission was also an interesting one because I fought the same Bane mission that I did as a hero, but the distinction there is when you go to fight Bane, it's really to take again and contaminate. It's a Joker doing the chaos thing. You're trying to contaminate the venom. So you're contaminating the venom so it blows up on the, you know, they get overdosed with venom, so to speak. So you see what happens when villains get overdosed with venom. And it's all, you know, for the Joker's creating chaos. So it actually all fits. So you're not really doing the same mission. It's seeing it from the villain's perspective. And you're really trying to thwart what the heroes are trying to do. So there's really this sense of you're in the same world that the heroes are in, but you're coming at it from the other side of the story, if that makes sense. So you do similar missions. I'm assuming there's set villain missions as well, but I do like doing some of the missions that I ran as a hero from the villain side and feeling like I'm getting the whole story, if I'm making any sense there. There really is that sense of, wow, okay, I'm seeing a mirror image of this mission of what it would be like to be on the other side. So I like it. It's very cool. It's an interesting... playing a villain was more fun than I realized. I am playing it on the player versus player end, which I don't usually do this. I quite like it. It does become very frustrating in the sense that I'm not good at it because I haven't done a whole lot of player versus player, but it has made me change how I play the game in a way that I'm really liking, and I like the challenge. What happens is, as you're trying to complete missions, especially out on the street and stuff, you're being attacked by heroes and other villains who are also trying to achieve the same goals. So it's really, you know, heroes are trying to obviously capture you for their own purposes as heroes, and villains are trying to take you down because you're trying to get the same goals, the same treasures, the same prizes that they are. So it makes a whole lot of sense as a villain that you would be doing this, and it really adds a neat challenge to the game. But you'll see teams of villains like Bandit. Like, I'm not on anybody's team. I've been doing these missions solo because I've been, you know, really kind of focused on doing this from this perspective of the podcast. So I made a character on each of the servers, and I'm really kind of trying to go through solo to see what, and watch what other people are doing as well. You'll actually see villain groups banded together, and, like, I've been attacked by them. And when I say attacked, I've been severely beat down by them. As you would be. And I actually quite like it, which is kind of strange. Go ahead.
So you like being beaten down by groups of people?
Well, no. In a game with a character named Little Pistol, I do.
Oh, okay.
Like, you got to remember, I'm playing with my villain character, so seeing Little Pistol get beat up is something I like. Now, if it's Shadow Wing or my Hawkman style character, I got a huge problem. I'm gonna call my backup and you know, do everything that we talk about on the show. But if it's my Little Pistol character, I really like seeing... I created this character with the purpose that I wanted it to be a villain I would laugh at.
Yeah.
And I do. So seeing him get beat down is really quite funny. He looks like... you know that Impulse character? The one that was the... what was that character's name? You know what I'm talking about? The one who was the evil Impulse?
Okay, yeah. Drawing a blank.
I'm drawing a blank on the character's name, too. It was Inertia. I had to look it up because it was driving me nuts. I hate when I don't remember the name of a character. So you know, it's obviously inspired by Inertia, more than anything else. So I want to see the kid smack down. It's the whole point of the whole thing. So, like, why did I create this character? Because I don't like villains, but I like laughing at villains. So, it's kind of, I actually feel good being a character that I want to see thwarted.
Now, I wonder if you can double-cross your team if you're a villain.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. So now I got to join a team to do that.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about your team or your super group?
I'm talking about your team.
Or your villain group, I should say.
Or villain group, even. Either or, really, because you think about it, that's always the downfall of every, villain group, with exception of the rogues, really. But, they always double-cross each other in the end, and that's, one of the things that causes them to lose.
Well, I would imagine at any point in time you could drop your villain group and turn on them. But I think that would be how you'd have to do it. Now, I don't know about your teams when you're actually teamed up. We'll have to try that when we actually get the game.
Yeah.
We'll have to try to turn on each other. Because we will. Actually, you know what? Here's the funny part. When we were talking a couple weeks ago about this, we were both saying how we wouldn't play villains. Yet everything we're discussing here is making me want to play a villain even more. I actually got to say, for as much as I like seeing Little Pistol get beat down, I really like the character. So I'm having fun playing a villain because it feels different. Which I think is a big distinction between this and City of Villains, for example. I love City of Heroes. No knock on the game. It's a great game. City of Villains, I'm not as into. I don't feel as much like a villain when I'm playing in City of Villains. But I thought it was a good step for that game. In this game, I actually really feel like a villain. The whole atmosphere and mood and everything. And I think it helps, though, that you're surrounded by DC villains. Like when you go into the secret hideouts.
Yeah.
Like Killer Frost is there. All the characters you would expect, from the DC villain universe. So you're encountering villains the same way that you would encounter heroes in the DC end. But you're also going to villain layers, which are like nightclubs and things like that. So you see, people dancing. There's pool halls. There's VIP rooms. It's a very different look to it. It almost looks like an underground Vegas kind of place.
Cool. Now, Little Pistol can't cross over to any of the other servers, can he?
No. Well, it's like you're actually on a server, so you can't cross him over. No, just it's like you would on any other game.
Okay.
Now I could create a Little Pistol on the other servers and start him off fresh. The player versus everyone servers.
Yeah.
I could create that character on there, but Little Pistol's just on the player versus player server. That's pretty standard, though. I'm assuming as the game goes on, you'll have the ability to pay or to earn tokens or something like that to transfer the character over. One thing I will say that I like about the game, they did announce that first of all it's going to be released January 11th. It's also going to have the ability to do the lifetime fee for it. It's $1.99.
Really? If
you don't want to do like the monthly, which ends up being a savings depending on how long you're going to play the game.
Yeah.
Which for me, that's a savings.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that because those lifetime subscriptions it seems to, when you look at when you break down the $14.99 a month that you would pay for the game, over the term of it, that seems to be the way to go. So I'm going to do that. But it's kind of cool that you have the option to either pay monthly if you want to do it on a budget or go that route.
Yeah, because you think about it, if it's like $1.99 for a lifetime, that's probably less than 2 years if you're paying it out.
And one of the reasons, this is something for people if you don't play MMOs, why do you pay a monthly fee for them? Well, it's because they're constantly adding new content. It's not like a game where you make one purchase and the game is static and you have to pay for download content or something as the time goes. This game is constantly going to be changing. They're going to be constantly adding new worlds, new features, new villains, new scenarios, new episodes. So like the initial storylines that you get with the game are going to be enhanced and added to as time goes on. So the game's going to be constantly growing. So it's a world that is constantly ever changing. So that's why you pay a fee for it. But for me, that's what I like about it because, eventually we're going to be getting comic book events and things like that. I'm sure the game will have its own crisis eventually.
It's got to.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of crazy not to, right? So, and I'm hoping they do more hero and villain events in there as well. I like the mirror image aspect of it. I liked going through, like if they do a crisis event, I would love to do like Little Pistol on one end, which here it's funny, I created this character with the intention that I was just going to use it for the beta for the purpose of this discussion. I'm liking the character so much.
Oh no.
I'm going to keep using the doggone character. I just know it now because it was funny. When I first started playing, I was joking earlier how I wanted to see the character beat down. I actually started to like the little guy. So, I'm having a little fun with him. Not a lot, just a little, because he's Little Pistol. But, but I mean, this is something I could see us playing, with our villain characters. Who's your villain character in City of Heroes? Do you have one?
Yeah.
Morte
Lento.
Morte Lento?
Morte Lento.
What does that
mean?
Slow
death.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that name's much cooler than Little Pistol.
Yeah. I always go foreign language.
Right.
And it sounds cooler.
It does sound cool.
Yeah.
I'm still going to keep Little Pistol, but I like that name. I might take it to try and get it before you get it, but
oh, you can. I've got. I'll make another villain name.
I'm teasing. I was so annoyed when I tried to go on a Shadow Wing, and somebody already took it. Because I've used that character in City of City of Heroes on multiple servers. I've used it in Champions Online. So I'm like, but I want my character. What? I actually like that you can't use on servers the same character name multiple times, because who wants the same names running around? You know what I mean? Well, I like having a unique identity for your character, so I don't mind. I actually don't mind that.
Yeah, and a trick you can go with is you do Shadow_Wing. That's different than Shadow Wing.
I know. I don't like the whole underscore thing, though.
Oh, okay.
Well, because, it's... the hyphen, I guess, I could do a hyphen, I guess, because you've seen that a lot in comics.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just... underscore thing seems kind of cheap to me. It's kind of a cheap way to make the same character. I'll just come up with... I like your Morte Lento. Like, I think that's something that people wouldn't normally think of.
Yeah.
Now they will, because you pronounce it on the podcast, but...
yeah, so now I'm going to try that someone took it.
It is amazing to me, though, the creativity of people when they come up with names, because I was looking around, and people really pull from all kinds of media.
Yeah.
In there. I mean, there's characters from video games, there's characters from film, from television, and I was like really marveling at the character creation engine. Even in the beta stage where it's not everything that the engine's going to be able to do, people have been able to pretty faithfully, capture a lot of different characters and things. They had Zangief from Street Fighter and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, this is really clever. How they got, I was able to recognize that's what the character was before I saw the name. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I really like that people spend that much time on their character creation. So it was kind of fun. But it's cool because if you want to get right into the game and you don't want to spend a ton of time with that, you can have your character inspired by other heroes and villains and use those templates. Like, it's not like you won't... Like, Little Pistol, just because I wanted to jump in right away as the character, I had the character inspired by The Flash. Then I shrunk him down, and then I made tweaks to the costume. Where I changed the face mask a little bit, I changed the outfit a little bit, the color scheme and tone, changed the boots. So I had like a template in place of a Flash family style character, but then altered it from that, which was really cool if you want to get into the game quickly and you don't want to dicker around with that. Yeah. You can get a really cool looking character by inspiring it by a hero or villain and then tweaking it, which was really neat. I'm having a ton of fun with the game so far, though. And honestly, this player versus player server, I was thinking about, like, okay, now that I've done this, I was figuring I would jump my villain character to the player versus everyone's server, which is normally my comfort level. I'm not going to. I like the challenge. So I'm actually going to keep that character on there. So I've got characters on all 3 of the current beta servers, and I'm really quite enjoying it.
Cool.
So it's a fun game. And it's, I'll keep doing little mini updates as the beta goes on, especially because they keep patching it all the time, which is great, because it means, even though it's coming out in January, well, you think, this is December 27th we're recording this on, the time crunch is coming down. It's less than a month till release of this game, and I'm really excited for it. Now, are you going to be playing the game opening day?
Yeah, I'm going to have to do some shopping.
I was thinking about you. I'm like, you don't have a setup yet.
No, I don't got the rigging. I got to go to the store and get it now.
I'm excited for you. I am. Well, I'm excited because I want to play this with you. So I'm like super excited. This is going to be cool because it's been a while since, especially because it's on my console. I'll play it more, and like we should have like a game night. We should have like a DCU night that we plan, and we'll have I think we should have certain characters that we play only on that night, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we'll create specific characters so we can kind of just on that night play those characters. Maybe a hero and a villain we use on those nights. We can alternate or something. Or we could do Hero Night and Villain Night. Which would be a lot of fun, I think. I do like the idea of you and me turning on each other in the villain group.
Yeah, I want to try that. I really want to try that.
I do.
Just see see if you can figure out a way to do that, because and you pick the most inopportune time to do it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just about to complete the mission. I'm turning on you.
Well, it would be fun to role play it like you're really real villains when you're playing in the villain end, where you just can't you want to trust each other because you want to complete the mission, but just knowing this putz is going to turn. See, you're right. That does make sense.
Yeah.
So I want to try it because it'd be fun to do that. To play completely differently when you play as villains.
Yeah. That
would be a blast. So, I don't know. That'd be a lot of fun to see what that looks like, that dynamic. You have me excited for this now. Darn you, little pistol. I beat the boss. It was right, to turn on you right when you're just ready to take out the enemy. You idiot! We almost won! That could be fun.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster!
We closed out with the show with a couple of insane recordings from Jim on his vacation to Las Vegas.
Well, this is the Sensei of Whatnot calling from his favorite city in the world, of course, second to the booming metropolis that is Cleveland. Now, I am in Las Vegas on my traditional Christmas holiday extravaganza in Sin City. Now, normally I call multiple times during my trip and report all the goofiness that has happened to me, but this year it was raining, and I usually do this outside on the one bridge walkway right outside the Flamingo Hotel, and I wasn't about to stand in the rain because I'm a wimp, so sorry. Also, this hasn't been that too big of an exciting thing. I did have a celebrity sighting, which was kind of neat, star of film and television. Got to talk to him, a very approachable, very nice guy. Let's see here. I did get to read some comic books, a couple of the Vertigo trades, the mystery, the crime, the crime books that they had like a while ago. I know it's been a very long time, but they get to read those. That's kind of neat. Let's see here. Lost an ungodly amount of money, but it's really sad. So I'm going to have to be really good at my job because I can't afford to lose it. I can't afford to lose it right now. My mom was on a wheelchair this trip because of knee surgery, so I had some interesting experience dealing with pushing someone around in a wheelchair throughout up and down the Vegas Strip, which was, I highly recommend it to anybody. It was a complete fun, filled time. Let's see here. Oh, and I got flashed. So that's about it, really, for my excitement that I had going on. So, sorry, not an exciting, rip-roaring, fun party time this time. It was just a lot of horrible gambling on my part. So that's all for now. Take care, and bye.
Am I the only one who wanted to know what celebrity he cited? I love when Jim calls in with these things. He did this whole thing about the celebrity sighting. I think I caught that right. He didn't tell us who the celebrity was. He's nuts.
Sensei again. You know what? As soon as I hung up the phone, I forgot to mention that I just ran into Spider-Man, almost literally. No, really, Spider-Man. He had a very interesting, I don't know why he's just hanging out in the Las Vegas Strip, but he's hanging out there, shooting webs at people, and had a, little, I believe, Asian child, I'm not sure the ethnicity of which, was walking, and he's standing there, and he goes, shoots his webs. The kid jumped and screamed. It had to be the funniest dang thing I've ever seen. I figured I'd share that with you. It's me to laugh at a little child being scared. I had said that, but watching the kid jump up, it's dang, that's good. Okay, so now this is officially me saying farewell. And if you didn't catch it before, yes, I am standing on a bridge, by the way. They're the walkways that go over Las Vegas Boulevard. I don't seem to have any issues with these at all. Normally, when I walk on any type of walkway or anything like that, I have issues. This one, for some reason, it seems very sturdy, safe, and sound to me. So, okay, either I'm getting better or I don't know. I'll talk to you all later, next time we record and whatnot. Until then, Bye.
Maybe it's because you were distracted by Spider-Man scaring little children. Anyway, thanks for calling, Jim.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
Once again, sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Want to remind everyone, DCBService.com, 45% off all the major publishers this month. If you didn't get a chance to place an order, this is a great opportunity to do this. Second month in a row that they're doing this. So they're really supporting the price drops from a lot of the major publishers by giving us these amazing discounts. Great chance to try out some new titles at not only are we getting them at that $2.99 price point now, but we're also getting 45% off from DCBService.com. Great chance to try out some new books maybe that you haven't before at a great price. So I want to thank DCBService.com for keeping those pre-order prices so low, especially during the holiday season. That's really great. Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to remind everyone that you can pick up those DC Comics Presents titles. These are collected editions of older stories, and this is great because, like I said, the Thunder Agents one, I'm very into the current Thunder Agents series, so it's a great chance for this 96-page book for me to be picking this one up. Regularly $7.99, 38% off, only $4.95, and that's a great discount. And I want to remind everyone once again that orders of $50 or more give you free shipping, and we're going to be using them for our upcoming contest. The grand prize winner is going to be able to pick a trade, so it's a good chance if you're entering the Sensei Super Snuggie Caption Contest. This is a great chance for you to take a look at the website, kind of browse around, see what trade you might want if you end up winning the contest. So thank you InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com for such amazing discounts. Jim, our next episode is the Raging Oscars. 10 categories of our choice. So we've each got 10 categories we're going to put in together, talking about the best of 2010. We're also going to, depending on time, we're going to talk some comics. The one I want to talk about for sure is that Larfleeze Christmas special.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about it this episode. We just ran out of time, but that's one for sure. Just in the holiday season, talk about that special because that one just begs to be talked about.
Yes.
And actually, the art on there is Brett Booth, who is going to be the artist on the upcoming Justice League of America, taking over from Mark Bagley. So I'm excited to talk about his artwork as well as just that fun story because that was super cool. And Arden Franco actually had a cool little bit in the end that was very tiny titans in its field that totally fit. So I'm excited to talk about that special. That'll be for sure on the next episode. Raging Oscars. Are you having as much trouble doing your Raging Oscars as I am?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So,
is it the 10 category limit? Or is it just deciding on your best of the best, or what is it that's...
It's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I'm trying to figure out what exactly I want to go with the categories, like, how do I want to lay this out? What's going to be my top pick? I pick something, I'm like, no, go with this, no, go with this. So it's, there's a couple stuff jumping around trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm trying to theme mine. Like I've done like last year, I had a theme going with mine. I'm trying to go with the same kind of idea because, I'm trying to say like what was a theme that would sum up my feeling for the last year in comics. But I'm really glad that we're doing this as our first episode in January because I feel sometimes we wait too long on this, and I'm glad that we're kind of wrapping up the year. Kicking off the year, I should say, with talking about the best of 2010, because I think it's the right time to do it. And actually, speaking of that, Jim, that episode will actually be aired after New Year's. So I want to wish all of our listeners out there a Happy New Year. And thank you for listening to Raging Bullets. We will actually that'll be our last few months coming up of what's going to be our 5 years in Raging Bullets. So if you have a chance, we're going to be at C2E2 on March 18th, 19th, and 20th. And the 23rd is actually the date of our 5th anniversary. So we're going to be celebrating our 5th anniversary at the Chicago Convention this year. So please consider joining us at C2E2.
And maybe in Chicago, you'll get to see the Snuggie up close and personal.
What are you going to do, like wear it at our booth?
Maybe.
Really?
You never know what I'm going to do.
I know. That's kind of a scary thing for me. That's a very good point. On that note, Jim, we'll see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, Hawker's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, talking about Hawkman.